Hello there and welcome. Tonight we drift together into a quieter world, a world that begins where the shore ends and the sea takes its slow, unhurried breath. You don't need to do anything but listen. Let your shoulders fall. Let your breath lengthen until it matches the rhythm of the waves you can almost hear beyond the window. Each sound fades, each thought loosens, and the night begins to settle around you like a tide coming in. The surface of the ocean is never still. Even on calm nights, it moves with a quiet pulse, a steady inhaling and exhaling that mirrors our own. Imagine standing at the edge of that great mirror as twilight slides across the horizon. The air tastes faintly of salt and cool mist, and somewhere far out, a wave folds upon itself and disappears. The world seems to exhale, and you exhale with it. As the light softens, colors melt from gold to silver to the deepening blue of evening. The last breeze carries the scent of seaweed and the sound of water folding over sand. You feel smaller here, but safe, a tiny witness to something vast and endlessly patient. The ocean is already calling you downward, not with urgency, but with invitation. Beneath that shimmering surface lies a realm that holds almost all of Earth's living space, yet remains mostly unseen. Scientists call it our planet's inner space, a frontier of pressure, silence, and life that glows in secret darkness. But before numbers or facts, there is only this feeling, the moment before descent, when the mind lets go and begins to float. A thin lace of foam drifts past your imagination, plankton glimmer like falling stars just beneath the water's skin. For a heartbeat, sky and sea exchange places, direction dissolves, and everything moves with the same slow purpose as your breathing. If you could slip below the surface now, the first thing you'd notice is how sound becomes round and soft. The crash of waves turns to distant music. Even your heartbeat joins the rhythm, a steady drum, patient and calm. Each imagined breath deepens. Muscles loosen, thoughts lengthen like kelp in a gentle current. The ocean begins to teach its first lesson, that surrender is not loss, but peace. Currents do not rush, they carry. To drift with them is to rediscover stillness. Somewhere beneath you, the light fragments into 1,000 shades of blue, turquoise, cobalt, indigo, each one darker, softer, older than the last. The surface above dims to a wavering silver ceiling. The first thin veil of night gathers like silk around your body. You are still close enough to feel the air's memory on your skin, yet the water is already working, slowing your pulse, quieting thought, inviting rest. Ahead lies the twilight zone, where light begins to fade and life begins to glow. For now, simply float between worlds, half in sky, half in sea, taking one calm breath before the blue. As we drift downward, daylight begins to loosen its hold. The surface above wavers like liquid glass, a trembling mirror that catches the last pale shimmer of the moon. Each meter deeper steals another shade of color. Reds are the first to vanish, then oranges, then the warmth of yellow slips quietly into memory. What remains is blue, endless, patient blue, softening around us like a blanket drawn over tired eyes. In this gentle twilight, the rules of sight begin to change. The human eye, built for open air, strains for brightness that no longer exists. Shapes blur, outlines soften, and the mind fills in the rest with imagination. A drifting jellyfish might seem a floating lantern. A school of fish becomes a slow swirl of stars. Down here, the absence of light makes room for wonder. It allows the ocean to paint in suggestion rather than clarity. If you listen closely, the darkness has texture. Faint crackles echo from the distant surface where waves still collide. Tiny bubbles rise past in a trail of silver, each carrying a whisper of the world above. Pressure thickens, not as a threat, but as an embrace. The body feels heavier, yet oddly freer, as though gravity itself has agreed to move more slowly. Scientists call this layer the Funbi mesopelagic zone, though most simply know it as the Simpline twilight zone, a band of water stretching from roughly 200 to 1,000 meters deep. Here, sunlight dwindles until it can no longer feed the green life of the upper sea. Photosynthesis falls silent, darkness begins to bloom, yet the ocean does not sleep. Creatures shaped by shadow rise and fall each night in the planet's largest migration, moving toward the surface under the cover of dusk and retreating again by dawn. They are travelers of dimness, their lives measured not in hours but in gradients of blue. Imagine being among them, slow silhouettes gliding through weightless night, each motion deliberate, unhurried. Fins stir the water like the turning of pages. Every movement leaves a faint trace of silver, gone in seconds. The deeper you go, the more the light thins, until even blue begins to fade into indigo, then into something darker still, not black, but the color of calm itself. Here the ocean feels infinite. Distance loses meaning. Time loses urgency. Only the rhythm of your breath and the muted throb of unseen waves remain. The body drifts, the mind quiets, and the last bright memory of daylight dissolves behind you. Ahead lies a world that glows from within, where living light replaces the sun, and every flicker in the dark tells a story waiting to be heard. Take another slow breath. Let the air leave gently. Its quiet folds are cool and endless, and the blue around you deepens until it becomes peace itself. Silence in the deep is not the absence of sound, but the transformation of it. The further you descend, the more every vibration stretches and softens, until even noise begins to float. What was once the crash of surf now feels like a low hum, far above, a memory muffled by miles of water. The ocean absorbs sharpness, it turns clamor into calm. Here, sound moves faster, yet somehow feels slower, its edges rounded by distance and density. You imagine yourself suspended in that immense stillness, surrounded by a vastness so complete that it seems to cradle you. Gravity loosens its grip, and the boundaries of the body begin to blur. There is no up or down, no forward or back, only the soft drift of your own breathing. The heartbeat you once felt in your chest seems to echo through the water itself, a steady pulse shared between you and the sea. At these depths, pressure folds around everything like an invisible hand. It could crush metal, yet living things here have adapted with grace. Some have no bones at all, only soft tissues that yield to the weight rather than resist it. The lesson of the deep is not strength, but flexibility. The creatures that endure are those who flow with the force that surrounds them, bending instead of breaking. In their silence lies wisdom. Peace is not the absence of power, but harmony with it. The temperature falls with every meter. Cold seeps in like a whisper, steady and impartial. The ocean does not rush, it teaches patience. Even light travels slowly now, bending through layers until it becomes a faint suggestion rather than illumination. Each motion, a kick, a turn, a breath, sends tiny ripples through the dark little rings of movement that expand and fade into infinity. Everything is connected here, even the quietest gesture. Sometimes submariners speak of the eerie stillness of these depths. They say that after a while, you begin to feel as if time itself has stopped. Not lost, but resting. It's an illusion, perhaps, but a gentle one. Down here, minutes stretch into something softer, almost like sleep. The heart rate slows, the breath becomes shallow, and thought itself begins to move like a slow current, steady and sure. If you could open your eyes wide enough, you might catch the faint glimmer of drifting snow. Not of ice, but of life. Tiny flakes of organic matter fall constantly from the bright world above, bits of plankton, shells, and fragments of unseen journeys. Scientists call it twin marine snow. It drifts endlessly downward, nourishing what lives in darkness. Even here, where light cannot reach, life continues, fed by the quiet generosity of the surface. You float among that snow, unhurried. The world around you is vast, unmeasured, and strangely comforting. The deeper you go, the quieter everything becomes, until silence itself feels alive, and your thoughts dissolve into it like salt in the sea. Even in stillness, the ocean is never truly still. Beneath its surface, invisible rivers flow without banks or borders, carrying warmth, salt, and life through every corner of the sea. These are the currents, soft, ceaseless hands that shape the deep. You cannot see them, yet you can feel their patience. They brush past like whispers, turning you ever so slightly, guiding without command. If silence is the ocean's voice, then currents are its breath. A single drop of water in one of these streams may travel farther than most creatures ever will. From pole to pole, across entire hemispheres, down through darkness and back toward light. Each movement is part of an endless circulation, connecting distant worlds with no visible thread. Oceanographers map these flows in swirling colors, calling them gyres, thermohaline loops, or global conveyors. To the imagination, they are veins of the planet, carrying its slow heartbeat around and around again. As you drift, you might sense one of these great currents brushing by, cool and purposeful. It doesn't pull or push, it invites. Your body aligns naturally, finding balance in its rhythm. The motion is slow enough to lull, but constant enough to remind you that the ocean is alive. Not a void of quiet, but a living field of motion. Every movement here is connected to wind high above the clouds, to melting ice, to sunlight warming the equator. You are suspended in a system that unites the entire world without ever making a sound. Scientists sometimes say that if all the oceans were to stop moving, life itself would falter. The sea's hidden circulation feeds plankton, steers weather, and cradles climate. Yet it does this quietly, unseen, and uncelebrated. Just as a breath sustains the body without demanding attention, the deep teaches balance again. Even the smallest motion, repeated endlessly, can hold an entire planet steady. Close your eyes and imagine drifting along such a current. It doesn't rush you forward but cradles you, turning you in slow spirals, drawing faint paths through the dark. The water around you feels alive with intention. It is as though unseen hands are shaping your course, not controlling, just guiding, like a soft tide that knows the way home. Somewhere far above, those same hands stir the surface into waves and carry ships across oceans. Down here, they barely tremble, yet their reach is vast. Each swirl of water links to another, and another, forming a network that binds continents together. In that realization, there is comfort, even alone in the silence. You are part of movement, part of connection. The current passes on. The water stills again, but the feeling of motion remains within you. It is the same rhythm as your breathing, in and out, rise and fall, a quiet reminder that the world never truly stops. It only shifts softly, like invisible hands beneath the sea. Every part of the ocean speaks, though its words are made of motion. Waves are its sentences, shaped not by voice but by rhythm, long rolling syllables that stretch across miles. At the surface, they rise and fall like slow breathing. Down here, their energy arrives as a faint pulse that passes through the body and keeps time with the heart. The ocean never truly stops speaking. It simply lowers its voice as you sink deeper into its calm. Each wave begins far away, perhaps born from a gust of wind that brushed against open water, hundreds of miles from where you float now. A single touch becomes a ripple, and that ripple joins others until they travel together as one long thought. Scientists describe this as the transfer of energy rather than the movement of water itself, a rhythm passed from molecule to molecule, like a whisper passed from ear to ear. The water doesn't travel far, but the message does, rolling forward endlessly until it reaches a shore or fades back into itself. Listen to that idea for a moment. Energy moving, words without sound, a message that travels by touch. The ocean communicates in patterns, not letters. Each crest, each dip, each pause between waves carries information about distance, wind, temperature, and time. Mariners once learned to read this language by feel. They could sense a storm coming through the subtle change in a swell, or find land by the way waves rebounded from unseen cliffs. It was an old conversation spoken softly and understood in silence. There's a gentleness to that exchange. No demand, no urgency, only rhythm. The sea offers its language freely, repeating itself until it's understood. Even animals speak it fluently. Dolphins and whales surf along pressure, waves to save energy, gliding as though carried in a sentence they were born knowing. Seabirds skim the crests, following invisible patterns of lift and fall. Everything listens, everything responds. It is communication without conflict, connection without noise. You might imagine the water around you forming invisible letters as it moves, tracing curves that stretch toward some far horizon. They dissolve almost instantly, yet each one carries meaning. If you could translate it, perhaps it would say something simple. When you are here, you are safe, keep moving softly. In the end, that's all any wave truly says. To be near it is to feel time slow down to the pace of water. Above, the surface continues its conversation with the wind. Below, the last remnants of that dialogue ripple through the deep, fading gently. You are surrounded by sentences too large to read, but their rhythm is enough. Every rise and fall of the current echoes within you. The ocean speaks, and you answer without words. By breathing, the water around you darkens, but it is not frightening. It feels like the moment when you close your eyes before sleep. Everything still, everything waiting. The surface light above is now only a soft reflection, trembling far away like a fading memory below. The deep begins to reveal its quiet treasures. You are crossing into what scientists call the twilight zone, though down here it feels more like dusk that never ends. The ocean's colors surrender one by one. Blue turns to indigo, indigo to violet, and violet to something close to black silk. Yet the darkness is not empty. It is full of small wonders, tiny glimmers that appear and vanish, as if the water itself were breathing light. At first they seem like illusions, brief flashes in the corner of the eye, but they grow more frequent until the sea around you begins to sparkle like a night sky turned inside out. These are the first signs of life that makes its own light. Jellyfish drift like floating lanterns, their slow pulsations leaving faint trails of green. Tiny shrimp flare with brief electric sparks. Even some fish wear constellations along their sides, blinking in gentle Morse code as they move. The deeper you go, the more these glows replace the sunlight that's gone. It is a world illuminated not from above, but from within. Imagine yourself suspended among them, the only human witness to a galaxy made of water. The dark no longer feels heavy, it feels alive. Around you, invisible currents guide these glowing beings through their endless migrations. Every night, they rise toward the faint light of the surface, and each morning they drift back into the shaded world, carrying the ocean's secrets with them. Their rhythm is ancient, older than any tide, and it hums softly through the water like a song you can feel but not hear. As your body drifts deeper, the pressure increases, but the mind grows lighter. There is a stillness here that quiets everything, a sense that the world has slowed to the pace of breathing. You begin to understand why some call this zone the ocean. It is neither dark nor bright, neither silent nor loud. It simply exists, steady and infinite, like the pause between thoughts. Far below, faint points of light shimmer, scattered like stars across an unseen valley. They mark the beginning of Chapter 2's realm, the bioluminescent kingdom where creatures make their own day. But for now, you hover at the edge of it, where the last traces of sunlight meet the first flickers of living fire. Take one more breath. Feel how the water holds you, weightless, timeless, safe. Above you, the world sleeps. Below you, another awakens. You are between them, suspended in the ocean's heartbeat, crossing gently into the twilight zone. The darkness welcomes you now. It no longer feels like absence, but like a soft fabric woven from shadow and light. Around you, faint glimmers awaken, scattered through the water like embers drifting on a slow breeze. They brighten, fade, and brighten again. Thousands of tiny sparks suspended in silence. The sea has lit its own lanterns. Each point of light belongs to a living being, creatures small enough to fit in your palm or large enough to fill an entire room with glow. Their bodies are translucent, their movements graceful, their brightness measured like the pulse of a sleeping heart. No two shine in quite the same way. Some blink rhythmically, others flare once and vanish. Together they form constellations that shift and drift with every current, galaxies unfolding beneath the surface of the world. The light they give is gentle, never blinding. It feels more like a whisper than a blaze, an invitation to look closer. Scientists call this phenomenon bioluminescent psi, but even the word sounds too sharp for what you see. Out here, it's simply the sea's way of dreaming in color. A chemical reaction, deep within each cell, releases energy as light instead of heat, a quiet miracle repeated endlessly across the ocean's vast interior. Imagine a comb jelly undulating like a silk ribbon, scattering rainbows through the dark. Imagine a shrimp igniting briefly, a spark in motion that fades before you can take a breath. Somewhere nearby, a fish glides by with twin lights beneath its eyes, as though carrying candles to find its way home. The water around them glows and dims with every movement, as if following a rhythm known only to the deep. Sometimes ships passing through the night disturb these luminous fields. Their wakes ignite behind them, glowing turquoise trails stretching for miles, proof that even the heaviest hull can set off beauty in its passing. Sailors once called these lights sea fire, believing them to be spirits guarding the waves. In a way, they were right. The glow is a sign of life enduring where sunlight cannot reach, a reminder that creation finds its own light when the sky offers none. If you could hold one of these lanterns in your hands, it would flicker softly, responding to touch as though aware of your presence. But it is better to let it remain where it belongs, free in the drifting dark. The ocean doesn't need to be illuminated to be beautiful. It only needs these small flickers to remind us that even the quietest worlds are alive with motion and meaning. As you drift among them, light gathers on your skin in glimmers, fading as quickly as it comes. The deep feels less like distance now, and more like home. Every flash, every pulse, every whisper of brightness says the same thing in a language older than words. You are not alone down here. Light in the deep is born not from the sun, but from life itself. It begins quietly, a shimmer within a cell, a tiny spark where chemistry becomes poetry. In the darkness, certain creatures carry a gift. They can turn energy into glow. The process is known as bioluminescence, science. And though science can describe it, no formula can capture its calm beauty. Inside each glowing organism lives a partnership between two worlds, biology and chemistry, woven together with elegance. A molecule called luciferin reacts with oxygen, guided by an enzyme called A. The result is light without heat, radiance without fire. It's the same gentle principle that lets fireflies pulse above summer fields. Yet here in the ocean, it becomes an entire language of existence. Every flicker, every hue of blue or green is a sentence written in illumination. What makes this light so peaceful is its purpose. Deep-sea creatures use it not to dazzle, but to survive in harmony with their surroundings. Some fish create soft glows to lure prey, others to hide by blending perfectly with the faint glimmer above them, a camouflage of brightness. Squid flash quick patterns to signal one another, jellyfish shimmer to confuse would-be hunters. Every glow is a response, a quiet dialogue between life and environment. The ocean doesn't waste energy on spectacle. It glows only when it must, like a thoughtful breath in the dark. Imagine drifting beside a comb jelly as it ripples with liquid color, light sliding through its body, like silk through fingers. Each pulse is silent, deliberate, ancient. Or picture a shrimp releasing a brief burst of blue, a tiny starburst that fades as soon as it forms. To witness it is to watch a heartbeat made visible. The rhythm feels familiar, not foreign, but close to our own. For humans, light often means noise. Bulbs buzzing, screens flickering, streets burning bright through the night. But here, illumination returns to its origin, natural, soft, unhurried. In these depths, light has purpose, not excess. It reminds us that beauty need not shout to be seen. Scientists still study how this glow evolved, why so many species found the same elegant solution to darkness. Some suggest it began as a defense, a warning, or a means of recognition. Others believe it was simply inevitable. When life was asked to survive in shadow, it answered with light. There's something deeply human in that idea, the instinct to shine gently when the world grows dim. You float within that truth now. Around you, faint pulses blink and fade, each one the result of invisible chemistry, luciferin meeting oxygen, reaction meeting rhythm. It happens countless times every second, scattered across the sea. Yet together, these quiet events weave a glowing net that stretches through the dark like a living constellation. You breathe slower. The light seems to breathe with you. Down here, even science feels like a lullaby. The further you drift, the more the darkness begins to sparkle. At first, the lights appear scattered and uncertain, like distant stars through mist. Then they gather into shapes, lines, clusters, gentle constellations moving in rhythm with the water. The deep sea becomes a slow procession of living lanterns, each creature carrying its own small galaxy within. A school of fundy lanternfisher passes by, thousands moving as one. Their bellies shine with soft blue dots that flicker like candles in a passing wind. Each flash is communication, signals to find one another, to align, to stay close in the endless dark. They drift together in silence, pulsing faintly, like a choir that sings without sound. Scientists say that lanternfish are among the most abundant vertebrates on the planet, yet few have ever seen them alive. They live where sunlight fades, feeding the ocean's vast network of life from the shadows. A little farther below, you meet the delicate drifters, the jellies. Their bodies are nearly invisible, but their light reveals their grace. Some glow in rings of pale green, others ripple with colors that travel like whispers down their translucent arms. The Futicum jelly, a creature so fragile it can tear at a touch, refracts light through rows of tiny moving plates. Each ripple sends waves of color sliding across its surface, shifting blues to pinks to ghostly purples. It looks like a thought passing through water. A few species use light to startle their predators. When disturbed, they bloom suddenly with brightness, a luminous flare that confuses and dazzles before fading back into calm. Others float serenely, never hurrying, their glow so constant that it feels like a heartbeat in the dark. In the still water, their tendrils sway slowly, tracing invisible lines of geometry. Every motion is art, effortless, unplanned, perfect. Imagine drifting through that quiet parade. The water around you seems alive with color, yet the sound is softer than breathing. Blue fades into emerald, emerald into violet, each hue blending like watercolors in slow motion. There is no chaos here, only harmony. The light has no source and no direction. It is everywhere, reflected and absorbed, creating a landscape made entirely of shimmer. Every now and then, a shadow glides past, perhaps a squid, perhaps a fish with a row of shining organs along its side. For a moment you see its pattern, then it disappears into the distance, leaving a trail of glow that lingers like memory. The deep sea is full of such apparitions, luminous and fleeting, existing for only a few breaths before dissolving into the endless blue. You drift among them, weightless and calm, part of the same silent ballet. Each creature around you burns gently, lives gently, and moves gently. Light without heat, motion without haste. The darkness you entered no longer feels empty. It feels inhabited, warm, and strangely welcoming, as though the stars themselves decided to take refuge underwater. Every flicker in the deep carries a message. Down here, where sound travels too far and vision fades too quickly, light becomes language. It is written not in words, but in rhythm and hue, a pattern of pulses that tells who is near, what they need, or where to go. You are surrounded by a silent conversation, older than any spoken tongue. A small squid glides past, tracing a trail of blue dots along its mantle. Each one brightens, then dims, forming waves of light that travel from head to tail. To another squid nearby, this is not decoration, it's a sentence. It may say, "Follow me," or "I am not afraid." To the human eye, it looks like poetry in motion, phrases of brightness drifting in slow succession through the dark. The squid does not hear these words, it feels them, reading the rhythm of the glow. Nearby, a group of shrimp flicker faintly in response. Their lights blink in a synchronized pattern, a chorus answering the call. Deep-sea fish join the exchange, signaling with organs known as mythophysophorescent, tiny biological lamps that line their bodies. Some flash rapidly, others glow steadily. To predators, these patterns can confuse and mislead. To potential mates, they shine like invitations. The ocean is full of this quiet dialogue, warnings, greetings, and songs of recognition written in light. Some species use bioluminescence to hide rather than reveal. They produce just enough brightness to match the faint glow from above, erasing their shadows so perfectly that they disappear. It's called feeding counter-illumination camouflage through light. A fish may glow softly on its underside, so that, when seen from below, it blends into the dim shimmer of the surface. The result is invisibility, not through darkness, but through mimicry. Even concealment here is graceful. There are also those who use light as alarm, sudden bursts of brilliance that ripple through the dark when danger approaches. To a predator, it's startling, a brief blindness in the black. To everything else nearby, it's a warning passed silently from one glow to the next, traveling like lightning through slow water. The effect is fleeting, yet unforgettable, a shimmer of collective defense. If you pause long enough, you begin to notice that this luminous conversation follows patterns much like music. Some lights pulse like steady percussion, others swell and fade like a melody. There are rests between them, pauses where the water holds its breath. The deep sea, in its own quiet way, is always singing. Imagine floating amid that silent orchestra, surrounded by notes of brightness. Each pulse around you means something. Each color is a word you cannot translate, but can still understand. The message is simple and universal. 20 we are here, we are alive, we see you, we in the vast silence of the ocean. That might be the most comforting language of all. We often think of darkness as the end of things, the closing of a day, the absence of warmth, the boundary where life thins and silence takes over. Yet here, in the deep darkness, is not an ending. It is a cradle. It protects and sustains, giving shape to one of the most resilient ecosystems on Earth. In the absence of sunlight, life has learned another kind of brilliance, to make energy from chemistry, patience, and connection. Below the glowing layers, light fades completely, yet the sea still thrives. Nutrients drift down like a slow, endless snowfall, fragments of plankton, shells, and traces of everything that once floated above. This marine snow falls constantly, feeding creatures that wait in the stillness. Every flake tells the story of another world. A leaf, a tiny shell, a bit of forgotten sunlight transformed into nourishment. What looks like emptiness is really exchange, a quiet cycle that keeps the planet alive. Farther below, near the ocean floor, entire communities bloom where one might expect nothing but stone. Around fissures in the seabed, superheated water bursts upward, rich with minerals and chemicals. These are hydrothermal vents, places where life feeds not on light, but on the chemistry of the earth itself. Bacteria transform those minerals into food, and from that foundation rises a small universe, tubules, clams, crabs, all living together in perpetual night. Their colors are pale, their movements slow, but their harmony is perfect. They prove that where energy exists, life will always find its way, quietly, humbly, beautifully. In the dark, competition softens into coexistence. Creatures rely on one another in ways unseen in the daylight world. Some host glowing bacteria that help them hunt or hide. Others clean, share, or merge entirely into one another's lives. The deep ocean rewards cooperation, not conquest. It has no space for wasteful conflict. Its silence encourages balance. For humans, the deep may seem foreign, even lonely. But listen closely. The darkness hums with slow communication, with energy flowing in cycles older than time. Every drifting particle, every whisper of current, every faint glimmer of bioluminescence is part of the same conversation. The ocean does not fear its shadowed depths, it uses them. From silence, it draws strength. From pressure, it finds structure. From cold, it builds calm endurance. If you allow your mind to drift with these thoughts, you might feel the lesson rising like a tide. That darkness is not the opposite of light, but its partner. Without one, the other has no meaning. Down here, they intertwine. Glow within gloom, warmth within cold, life within what seems still. The sea's deepest secret is not that it hides from light, but that it twin creates its own darkness. In the ocean's language, means safety, rhythm, and renewal. When you look around, the ocean no longer seems like water at all. It feels like space. Each glimmer drifting past could be a star, each pulse of light, a distant planet turning in silence. You are surrounded by constellations that shift and dissolve with every current, a galaxy that lives and breathes beneath the waves. In the black stillness, the resemblance is uncanny. Both the sea and the sky are endless, both stitched together by points of light scattered across a dark expanse. Sailors once navigated by the heavens above and were comforted by the glow below, watching the wake of their ships burn faintly blue in the night. They must have felt it too, the mirror between worlds, the sense that Earth was reflecting its own stars through the ocean's skin. The creatures here seem to move in slow orbits. Lanternfish spiral paths through the dark. Tiny plankton drift like comets. A jelly pulses, leaving a faint trail that looks like a meteor's tail in the sky. Nothing collides, nothing hurries. Each motion has purpose, but no urgency. This is how the universe might move if it had learned patience. Science tells us that much of the chemistry that makes these creatures glow, the same luciferin and luciferase that spark their soft blue light, shares the basic elements forged in stars. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, dust once scattered across galaxies, now glimmers in a fish's belly. The light you see down here was born from ancient fire and reshaped by time into something cool and calm. In a way, the ocean is the universe remembering itself, the cosmos translated into water and breath. As you drift through this underwater sky, it's hard to tell where one world ends. The light from above filters down faintly, and the glow from below answers it in kind. Between them lies you, a small observer suspended between two infinities, breathing in rhythm with both. The experience is humbling, but not overwhelming. You feel not smaller, but included, as though the sea and the stars were extensions of the same quiet mind. In ancient myths, people imagined the heavens as an ocean, a vast celestial sea through which the stars floated like islands of fire. Perhaps they weren't wrong. Here, surrounded by drifting lights, that idea feels less like metaphor and more like memory. The boundaries between sky and sea, between above and below, dissolve into something simple and serene. You let yourself drift among the shining forms until motion and stillness feel the same. Around you, blue fades into black, and black softens back into blue. Every flicker feels familiar now, like a heartbeat or a breath. In this moment, the ocean and the cosmos are one, a single field of quiet radiance, endless and kind. And as you float there, surrounded by living stars, the world above you and the world below you pulse together in peace. The surface of the sea is deceptive. From above, it looks smooth and endless, hiding the fact that beneath it lies a world of mountains, valleys, and plains more dramatic than anything on land. If the oceans were drained, Earth would appear as an alien planet, scarred, sculpted, and full of towering formations that no eye has seen in daylight. These submerged landscapes are the planet's quiet masterpiece, carved over millions of years by forces of unimaginable patience. Far below, the seafloor stretches in ranges that rival the Himalayas. The Phobidesian Ridge winds like a scar around the globe. Over 60,000 kilometers long, the largest mountain chain on Earth, yet hidden beneath waves. It rises where the planet's crust slowly pulls apart, where molten rock seeps upward and cools, building new seafloor inch by inch. No eruptions of violence here, no roaring lava, just the slow, constant exhalation of the Earth itself, a creation so vast it moves in silence. Imagine standing on one of those unseen summits. Around you, there would be no horizon, only the blue-black vastness of water. Above, a faint suggestion of light, below, valleys stretching deeper than any canyon. The peaks are shaped not by wind or rain, but by currents, sediment, and time. Coral and sponges cling to their slopes, painting them in faint hues that only glow when touched by passing bioluminescent life. You might see a fish drifting by, small as a thought. Its glow the only hint of scale in this vast cathedral of stone. There are cliffs so steep that submarines must circle them like birds of metal, descending in spirals to map their edges. Plateaus rise thousands of meters high before dropping suddenly into trenches, so deep they could swallow Mount Everest whole. Yet despite their enormity, the ocean's mountains are gentle in their purpose. They redirect currents, nurture ecosystems, and shape the movement of the sea itself. They are the bones of the planet, holding the world steady beneath the shifting skin of water. Some of these peaks, known as Delphine Mounts, rise so close to the surface that waves break over their hidden crowns. They create oases of life, places where nutrients swirl upward, feeding corals and fish in endless spirals of abundance. Others sleep far below, untouched, their slopes coated in fine sediment that has not been disturbed for centuries. Both are beautiful in their stillness. The ocean's architecture does not compete for attention. It endures, unseen yet essential. To know that such landscapes exist beneath every horizon changes the way you see the world. The ocean is not emptiness. It is a vast terrain hidden by water, sculpted by pressure and time. As you drift through its unseen valleys and glide past its silent summits, you begin to understand. The sea does not hide its wonders. It simply keeps them beneath the surface, where only those who slow down, those willing to listen, will ever truly see. As the underwater mountains rise, so too do their opposites descend. Vast chasms that carve the floor of the ocean into shapes of quiet magnitude. These are the trenches, the deepest scars on Earth's surface, and they are older, colder, and more mysterious than any place on land. If the ocean's ridges are its spine, then the trenches are its folded hands, places of rest and stillness, where the weight of the world gathers and waits. The greatest of them all lies in the Western Pacific, the Mariana Trench. It stretches for more than 2,500 kilometers, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Its deepest point, the Challenger Deep, reaches nearly 11 kilometers below the surface. a realm of pressure so immense that a human would be crushed instantly. And yet, somehow, life persists there. Creatures drift through its blackness, their forms delicate and translucent, adapted to endure what no machine can replicate for long. Each movement here is slow, deliberate, reverent. It is difficult to imagine such depth. From the surface, sunlight takes more than an hour to fade entirely. As you descend in thought, you pass through layers of ancient cold, the temperature dropping until it hovers just above freezing. The water thickens, sound bends. If you could stand at the bottom of the trench, it would feel as though you were inside the heartbeat of the planet. The pressure there is more than 1,000 times what you feel at sea level, every square inch of your body carrying the weight of mountains, and yet the silence is absolute. Scientists have sent probes and submersibles into these depths, their lights cutting through the black like brief comets. They have found amphipods, tiny shrimp-like beings, and strange snailfish, their bodies soft and flexible, their bones replaced with cartilage. They live in perfect equilibrium with their environment, thriving not by resisting pressure, but by becoming one with it. They remind us that survival at its purest is adaptation, not defiance. Each trench has its own story. The Foy Tonga Trencher, the Fon Philippine, the Fon de Kermadec. All are places where tectonic plates meet and bow, the Earth's crust slowly folding into itself. Every few centuries, these silent seams release their stored energy as earthquakes that ripple upward, but for most of time, they rest in patient stillness. The movement of continents, the shape of islands, even the rhythm of tides all trace their origins here, deep within these sleeping valleys. Imagine floating above one now, peering down into darkness so complete it looks solid. Somewhere below, ancient sediments lie untouched for millions of years, holding the memory of vanished worlds. Yet the sea above remains calm, unaware of the vastness beneath. The trenches remind us that beneath every still surface lies immeasurable depth, and that even the quietest places hold the planet as most powerful stories. In the deep, pressure is everywhere, invisible, constant, absolute. It wraps around every living thing like an embrace made of weight. To those who visit from the surface, it is unimaginable. At depths beyond 10 kilometers, each square inch of space bears more than 1,000 times the pressure of the air above us. Yet down here, nothing groans or resists. Life simply continues, unhurried and unharmed. The creatures of the deep have made peace with pressure. They wear it like a second skin. For humans, the word thivin pressure often means struggle, deadlines, expectations, the invisible force that pushes and constrains. But in the ocean, pressure is not an enemy. It is part of the environment itself, steady and impartial. The secret to survival here is not resistance, but acceptance. Creatures thrive by yielding, by allowing the weight to move through them instead of against them. Their bodies are soft, their structures fluid. They bend where rigid forms would break. Strength, in the deep, is found in flexibility. Scientists studying these organisms have discovered remarkable adaptations. Some fish, like the snailfish of the trenches, have no air-filled spaces in their bodies. Instead, their flesh contains special molecules that stabilize proteins under immense force. Others possess cell membranes more fluid than ours, able to shift without tearing. Even microbes survive in conditions that would crush steel, tiny points of life that persist with quiet persistence. The deep has no tolerance for fragility, but it also has no need for defiance. Everything that lives here exists in harmony with the pressure around it. If you close your eyes, you can imagine what that feels like. The gentle, even weight of water pressing from all sides, holding you steady. There is no strain in it, only equilibrium. The deeper you sink into stillness, the more that pressure begins to resemble calm. It keeps you grounded, suspended in place. It tells you that balance is possible, even under great force. The ocean teaches a simple truth. The world above may value strength that resists, but the world below honors strength that adapts. Down here, there are no cracks to form under stress, because nothing struggles against the weight. There is only motion, slow, consistent, peaceful. The sea carries its pressure gracefully, and in doing so, it transforms something crushing into something protective. When submarines descend to these depths, they must be built with precision and humility. Every bolt, every curve of steel, every seam is designed to share the pressure equally. The craft becomes part of its surroundings, not apart from them. That is the lesson of the deep, that harmony, not resistance, sustains endurance. If you listen closely, you might feel that ideas settle around you now, pressure as presence, not burden. It steadies, not destroys. It holds, not harms. Down here, the weight of the world becomes something beautiful, a calm that surrounds you completely, asking nothing but stillness in return. In the deepest night of the ocean where sunlight has never reached, warmth still finds a way. Along cracks in the seafloor, the planet itself exhales. Jets of mineral, rich water rising from vents in the crust. They are called Fidhi hydrothermal vents, and though they form in a world of cold and crushing pressure, they glow faintly with heat, like distant embers hidden under the sea. Around them, life gathers in quiet abundance. These are the ocean's hidden gardens. The water that seeps from the vents can be hotter than boiling, yet it never forms steam. The pressure here is too immense. Heat remains trapped within the liquid, diffusing slowly into the chill around it. As the minerals mix with cold seawater, they harden into chimneys of stone and metal, rising like delicate towers. From their openings, wisps of warmth curl upward, black and white smoke that is not smoke at all, but minerals crystallizing in the current. The sight is serene, not fiery, motion without flame, creation without sound. Around these mineral spires, entire ecosystems bloom in silence. Giant tube worms sway in the gentle flow, their white sheaths sheltering bright red plumes that wave like flags in an invisible breeze. Crabs, pale and sightless, scuttle over rocks dusted in sulfur. Tiny shrimp gather in clouds, their translucent bodies glimmering with reflected glow. Every creature here lives not by sunlight, but by the chemistry of the earth itself. Microbes within their bodies convert the minerals from the vents into nourishment, a process called feed chemosynthesis. In place of photosynthesis is green light. This is the deep, soft alchemy, life born from heat and stone. It feels strange to think of such gardens thriving miles below the surface. But they remind us that warmth is not confined to the sun. The earth carries its own quiet fire, and wherever it touches water, new possibilities emerge. The vents may seem violent in their creation, but in truth they nurture the calm persistence of existence. There is no chaos here, only steady exchange, minerals rising, life gathering, energy flowing in slow spirals. Scientists who have visited these vents describe the experience as otherworldly, a glow of warmth surrounded by infinite dark. It's easy to imagine that if we ever travel to distant planets, we might find life growing near similar fissures under alien oceans. The pattern feels universal: pressure, warmth, patience, and the gentle insistence of life. As you picture these hydrothermal gardens, let the image unfold slowly. Columns of stone breathing warmth, plumes of living red, pale crabs moving like drifting thoughts. Everything here survives because it shares, not competes. Energy flows in circles, life feeds on balance. It is a perfect example of what the deep teaches best, that beauty often blooms in silence, and that even in the coldest dark, there are still small fires burning steadily in the sea. It seems impossible, a river beneath a river, a lake beneath the sea, and yet, in the deepest parts of the ocean, such things exist. They flow quietly through the dark, mirroring the world above, but in slower, softer rhythm. Here, within the sea's embrace, the earth repeats itself, shorelines hidden in shadow, waves moving through waves, reflections without light. These feeding underwater rivers sit in brine, lakes sit form, where dense, salty water settles into valleys on the seafloor. The difference in salinity is so great that the two layers refuse to mix. The heavy brine rests like liquid glass, smooth and still, while the lighter seawater drifts above it. At their boundary, the contrast is so sharp that it looks like a surface, a shimmering horizon that bends and ripples with every current. Submersibles passing through it rise and fall as though crossing into another world. From above, these lakes appear to have their own tides and waves. Some even have shorelines, marked by ripples of sediment and the faint shimmer of trapped bubbles. Scientists describe them as surreal places, where one can watch the illusion of rain falling through water, droplets sinking into a sea within a sea. The brine below is often toxic, heavy with hydrogen sulfide and methane, but it sustains unique forms of life, that flourish in its boundary zones. Tube worms, mussels, and shrimp gather at the edges, where chemistry changes just enough to allow survival. The line between life and stillness is razor thin, yet perfectly balanced. Imagine drifting toward one of these hidden lakes. Ahead, the water begins to shimmer as if a mirage has bloomed in the dark. Your reflection, faint silver, distorted, glides across the surface of something that should not be there. Beneath that surface lies calm so complete that it feels sacred. The brine moves slowly, heavy and deliberate, whispering to itself in ripples that never reach the open sea. In some places, these lakes give off faint luminescent halos, gases escaping in tiny bubbles that catch the light of a submersible's lamp. In others, the edge glows with microbial mats, thin layers of color that look like velvet laid over stone. The effect is hypnotic, motionless landscapes painted in quiet gradients of blue, green, and silver. There is no sound but the soft hiss of the ocean moving past, a world within a world undisturbed. To see a lake beneath the sea is to glimpse the ocean dreaming of itself. It mirrors the surface world above, not as imitation, but as memory. Rivers flow, rain falls, waves rise, all within a single element that knows both movement and stillness. These places remind us that boundaries are illusions, and that even within one vast body, there can be countless smaller worlds. The sea, like the mind, contains layers upon layers, each one deeper, slower, and more beautiful than the last. To understand the ocean is to learn how to see without sight. For centuries, humans looked upon the sea and knew almost nothing of what lay beneath. Its depths were legend, a mystery too vast to measure, too dark to imagine. But curiosity, like a tide, is persistent. Generation after generation, we have reached for the hidden world below, drawing maps, not of places we have walked, but of echoes we have heard. The first cartographers of the deep were listeners. In the mid-20th century, scientists began to send sound into the water, pulses that traveled down, touched the seafloor, and returned. By timing their echoes, they could trace the contours of the unseen world. This technique, called sonar, turned the ocean into an instrument. Each ping was a note, each echo a reply. Slowly, over decades, those scattered tones became outlines, and those outlines became the first true maps of the seafloor. Mountains, trenches, ridges, all revealed themselves not to sight, but to patience. Modern oceanographers continue this work with astonishing precision. Satellites measure tiny changes in sea surface height, caused by the shape of the terrain below. Submersibles glide through darkness, scanning the abyss with lasers and sound waves. Together, they have charted worlds that no human has ever seen directly, an atlas of the invisible, drawn from silence. Even now, less than a quarter of the ocean floor has been mapped in detail. Most of our planet remains a blank space, a mystery waiting beneath our feet. Yet there is something soothing in that uncharted vastness. It reminds us that mystery still exists, that even in an age of measurement and speed, there are places beyond reach, still patient, still untouched. The scientists who work in this field speak of awe more than discovery. They describe moments when their instruments reveal new peaks or valleys thousands of meters below, and they realize that for all of human history, no one has ever known those places existed. Each new contour is like uncovering a forgotten dream of the Earth. To map the deep is to listen to the planet breathe. Every echo that returns from the dark tells a story of formation and change, the slow drift of continents, the rise and collapse of ridges, the silent dance of tectonic plates. The ocean floor is alive. Cartographers of the invisible translate those movements into form, giving shape to stillness. When you look at a map of the seafloor, the ridges curling like veins, the trenches folding into shadow, you are looking at more than geography. You are seeing the memory of a living world, written in sound. It is proof that the unseen is not unknowable, and that beauty can exist even in the places no light has ever touched. Down here, the sun is only a story told by drifting particles. No beam of light has touched this place for millions of years, and yet it is alive. The deep ocean, long thought barren, is filled with creatures that have never seen the day but still move, feed, and glow with their own quiet energy. In this realm of cold and darkness, life has rewritten the rules. Without sunlight, survival depends on invention. The plants of the surface rely on photosynthesis. Light turned into food. But here, in the endless night, another process takes its place. Photosynthesis. Tiny microbes gather around hydrothermal vents and cold seeps, feeding on the minerals and gases that rise from the Earth's crust. They transform these invisible ingredients into nourishment, creating energy where no light exists. From these unseen beginnings, entire ecosystems unfold. Shrimp, crabs, worms, and fish, all living by the chemistry of stone and water. Imagine the first forms that evolved here, microscopic drifters, floating through silence, finding sustenance in the warmth of the planet itself. They were small but patient, adapting over millions of years until they could live in perfect balance with their world. Their descendants still thrive today, clinging to rocks and vents, passing their energy upward through food chains that stretch into the dark. Each creature that feeds on another is, in a sense, eating sunlight, long forgotten. Energy stored in minerals, recycled through the patience of time. These life forms are like living whispers. Their bodies are soft and often translucent, shaped by pressure rather than air. Some have organs that glow faintly, helping them recognize one another in the black. Others move so slowly that they seem to drift rather than swim. Here, energy is precious, and nothing is wasted. Even death becomes nourishment. When scientists first discovered these communities in the late 1970s, they were astonished. Until then, it was believed that sunlight defined the boundaries of life on Earth. But the ocean quietly proved otherwise. Life did not end where light stopped. It simply changed its method, evolving new paths through the dark. In doing so, it revealed something profound, that existence is not limited by the familiar, but expanded by adaptation. To float here, imagining these creatures moving slowly through their unseen gardens, is to feel the humility of the world itself. The deep does not shout its miracles, it whispers them in chemistry and form. No color, no sun, no sound, and yet abundance everywhere. The lesson it teaches is one of quiet persistence, that life will always find a way to glow, even in the absence of light. What seems like darkness is, in truth, the beginning of illumination. Not all life in the deep is small. Some of it moves with such size and grace that the water seems to part in reverence. These are the gentle giants of the sea, being so vast they could eclipse the light of a submersible, yet so calm that their motion feels like a heartbeat stretched across miles. Down here, immensity and silence coexist without conflict. The third whale shark, largest of all fish, drifts through the upper twilight layers, its mouth wide as a doorway, filtering clouds of plankton invisible to the naked eye. Despite its size, as long as a bus heavier than an elephant, it feeds only on the smallest lives. Its skin carries faint patterns of white and gray, dots that resemble constellations. As it passes, it looks like a piece of the night sky come to life, moving through the blue as stars might move through space. There is no aggression in it, only purpose. Its slow, rhythmic tailbeat is enough to propel it forward endlessly, never hurried, never still, deeper still. Another giant moves, the Thunderfiant whale. Its massive head houses organs that help it dive to crushing depths in search of squid. It can hold its breath for over an hour, plunging down thousands of meters before returning to the surface for air. In those dark stretches, the whale sings, low, resonant, clicks that travel for miles. The sound is both navigation and language, a kind of echolocation that paints the world in echoes. To another whale far away, each click is a greeting, a signal through the dark, as if the sea itself were speaking back. Then there is the elusive sea-giant squiddy, long thought mythical, glimpsed only in fragments brought up by currents. It lives where the pressure would flatten metal, yet its body flows like silk, tentacles stretching more than 10 meters long. Each arm is lined with suckers rimmed in chitin, tools for holding, not harm. It moves with precision, pulsing through the water with slow, rhythmic grace. When light touches it, its skin flashes with iridescence, copper, violet, silver, before it disappears again into shadow. Its beauty lies not in what it reveals, but in what it hides. To see any of these beings, even in imagination, is to feel a sense of scale that humbles thought. They move without haste, as if they have never known urgency. Their lives are measured not in moments, but in migrations, the long looping paths that circle the planet with the steadiness of tides. In their presence, everything slows. You begin to understand that power can be silent and majesty can be gentle. The gentle giants remind us that greatness does not need to announce itself. It glides quietly beneath the waves, living proof that peace and strength are not opposites, but twins. In their slow journey through the deep, they teach us the rhythm of the sea, patient, vast, and eternal. In the upper world, visibility means existence. We believe that to be seen is to be real, but in the deep, the opposite is true. Here, survival depends on disappearance. The farther light fades, the more creatures adapt to its absence, becoming nearly invisible, bodies made of glass, outlines erased by water. Transparency is the art of the abyss, and those who master it move through the darkness unseen, untouched, and perfectly at home. Among the most delicate are the fin glass squids, their bodies so clear that even their organs shimmer like faint shadows. Only their eyes hold color, floating within the translucent form, like two small moons. They hover mid-water, turning gently to match the faint glow above, vanishing into it completely. Their invisibility is not just defense, it is grace, a quiet acceptance of the environment around them, emerging with it so complete that the line between self and sea dissolves. Nearby, the Fidlarvation Sea build fragile homes out of mucus and silk, spheres no larger than a fingertip, yet intricate as cathedrals. Each one filters the water for food, capturing the drifting particles that descend from above. When their homes clog with sediment, they abandon them and spin new ones, leaving behind transparent ghosts that drift slowly downward like bubbles of thought. It is creation and letting go, a daily cycle of quiet renewal. There are fish so delicate that they appear carved from air. The fun-barrelly fish, for instance, has a clear dome for a head, its green eyes rotating within like twin marbles of glass. It can look straight upward through its own skull, tracking the faint silhouettes of prey outlined by bioluminescence. Even its bones seem softened by the dark, bending rather than breaking, built for the slow, weightless ballet of the depths. Some creatures carry transparency to extremes, medusae with filaments, so fine they vanish even under light, comb jellies whose rainbow flickers are not pigment but refraction. Their bodies are prisms through which the ocean itself shines. When a beam of light touches them, color blooms and fades as if the sea were painting itself anew. Then, in an instant, they are gone again, perfectly merged with the medium that holds them. To drift among them is to enter a world of ghosts and miracles, forms that exist by yielding completely to their surroundings. They remind us that survival does not always mean standing out. Sometimes it means becoming part of the quiet fabric of things. The transparent creatures of the deep are not fragile because they vanish. They endure because they do. Their invisibility is not absence, but presence in its purest form, harmony so perfect that it disappears from sight. In the deep ocean, even glass has life. It bends, it glows, it breathes. To see it, you must slow down enough to notice what hides between reflections, the living shimmer of nothingness, drifting through forever. Predators in the deep do not chase. They wait. They do not roar or rush or flash with teeth. Instead, they glow softly, pulse gently, and use stillness as their greatest tool. Down here, where energy is precious and movement is costly, hunting is less about pursuit and more about presence. Even the fiercest among these creatures seem to move with elegance, predators that capture without cruelty, surviving by design rather than force. One of the most haunting is the Kundi anglerfish tine. Her body is small, her skin dark and unreflective, blending perfectly with the water around her. From her forehead grows a single filament tipped with a light, a lure glowing like a candle in a cave. She waves it slowly back and forth, and in the endless dark, that flicker is irresistible. A curious fish drifts close, drawn by the promise of safety, or perhaps companionship, and in one swift, silent motion, she opens her mouth. The water fills with nothing but a ripple. It happens in an instant, and then the dark closes again, seamless, unbroken. There is no fury in it, no triumph, only survival, carried out with calm precision. Other predators choose deception through beauty. The feeder vampire squidid, despite its ominous name, is a creature of gentleness. Its arms are connected by a thin web of skin that looks like silk stretched between stars. When threatened, it turns itself inside out, revealing a velvet cape lined with bioluminescent dots, a show of light that confuses attackers long enough for it to drift away. It hunts not by attack, but by collecting the snow that falls from above. bits of organic matter and plankton, gathering what the sea offers rather than taking what it guards. A predator that feeds on patience. Some creatures, like fin dragonfish, carry light along their bodies in soft rows that shimmer like lanterns. They open their jaws to reveal fangs that glow from within, not to frighten, but to lure. Others, like the sung-pied stomids, possess transparent teeth, invisible even to prey that strays too close. Their mouths open silently, the surrounding water their accomplice. No struggle, no splash, just a slow, inevitable movement followed by stillness. To imagine these hunters is to realize how different life is when every motion must justify its cost. Down here, excess is impossible. Everything is measured. Even predation has been refined into art, quiet, efficient, precise. The ocean teaches balance again, that even hunger, when tempered by stillness, becomes part of harmony. If you listen carefully, you might hear the rhythm of this life, the flicker of light, the faint pulse of motion, the heartbeat of the sea itself. There is no violence in it, only necessity, softened by the dark. The predators of the deep remind us that survival need not be loud. It can be patient, beautiful, and kind. A delicate dance played out in silence, beneath the weight of the world. In the surface world, survival often seems like a contest, a race for food, space, light. But in the deep, where isolation is constant and energy rare, life has learned another way. Down here, existence depends on partnership. Symbiosis, the quiet art of living together, is the thread that binds this darkness into community. The creatures of the abyss do not thrive through conquest, but through companionship. Take the relationship between the bobtail squid and the glowing bacteria that live within its skin. Each night, as the squid leaves the safety of the sand to feed, those bacteria light up softly, matching the faint shimmer of moonlight filtering from above. Their glow masks the squid's shadow, hiding it from predators. In return, the squid provides them shelter and nutrients. Every morning when dawn approaches, it releases most of them back into the sea, a gesture of trust and renewal, before burying itself once more. This quiet ritual repeats with perfect rhythm, like breathing between two worlds. Elsewhere, twin deep-sea tube worms rely on microscopic partners of their own. Lacking mouths and stomachs, they depend entirely on bacteria, living inside their tissues, to convert the chemicals from hydrothermal vents into nourishment. The worms give the bacteria a home. The bacteria feed the worms. Together, they turn poison into sustenance, darkness into life. Neither could exist alone, but together they create entire colonies, waving gently in the warm currents, like fields of pale flowers. Even the fiercest predators carry allies. Some fish harbor glowing bacteria inside their organs, using them as lanterns or communication signals. Others rely on cleaner shrimp that pick parasites from their skin, both benefiting from the exchange. Down here, where every calorie is precious, nothing is wasted, not energy, not opportunity for cooperation. It is a quiet economy of mutual care. In this world of scarcity, partnership is not sentiment, it is strategy. The creatures of the deep have discovered what many on the surface forget, that survival often depends on the connections we cannot see. When light is gone and distance endless, companionship becomes the only warmth that endures. Imagine drifting through this dim expanse, watching pairs and clusters of beings move as one. Fish and glow, worm and microbe, predator and cleaner, each relationship forming a thread in a web so vast it feels infinite. The dark ceases to be lonely. It hums with quiet understanding. The lesson of the deep is simple and profound. In darkness, life chooses to share. It reminds us that cooperation is not weakness, but wisdom, a way of softening the harshness of existence into something bearable, even beautiful. Down here, every glow is a partnership, every breath a conversation, and together they form a symphony of silent agreements, keeping the deep alive. Time moves differently in the deep. Without sunrise or season, the days lose their edges. There is only the slow pulse of currents and the steady rhythm of existence. Here, survival is not a matter of speed or strength, but of patience. Every creature that endures the depths has learned to stretch a heartbeat into an hour, a movement into a meditation. Life here is not hurried, it is timeless. Some of the deep's inhabitants live for centuries. The Greenland shark, for instance, drifts through Arctic waters so cold that its metabolism slows to near stillness. It grows less than a centimeter a year, and scientists believe it may live for more than 400 years, longer than most civilizations. Each movement of its massive body is deliberate, each turn of its fin a gesture of quiet endurance. It does not rush toward food or flee from danger. It simply continues, unbothered by the pace of the world above. In the deep-sea trenches, other creatures share this unhurried existence. Sea cucumbers crawl across the sediment, with infinite slowness, sifting nutrients grain by grain. 5D coral sea build reefs over millennia, their skeletons forming cities of stone that rise so gradually they seem unmoving to the human eye. The ocean floor is a realm of patience, not stagnation, but constancy. It reminds us that not all progress can be seen in moments. Some is measured in lifetimes, in persistence too quiet to notice. The deeper you imagine yourself sinking, the more time seems to stretch. Down here, movement is luxury, stillness, survival. Each creature conserves what it has, letting the ocean carry it rather than fighting the weight of the world. Energy flows in slow circles, never wasted, never rushed. Even decay is graceful. A body falling to the seafloor becomes nourishment for countless others, each taking only what is needed, each adding its part to the rhythm of renewal. In this way, death itself becomes an act of patience, a soft continuation rather than an ending. To understand the patience of the deep is to glimpse another way of living. The ocean does not resist time, it receives it. Its creatures do not rush to survive, they adapt to endure. They move at the speed of necessity, no faster, no slower. And in that measured pace, there is peace. The deep teaches that longevity is not about defiance but harmony, not about avoiding change, but embracing it at the right rhythm. Imagine yourself within that rhythm now, your breathing slow, your thoughts unhurried, your awareness stretched wide. Around you, the deep hums in silence, timeless and infinite. You realize that life here is not fragile. It is eternal precisely because it has learned to wait. In a world that measures time in centuries and motion in whispers, patience is not just survival, it is the purest form of strength. For all its stillness, the ocean is never truly silent. Beneath the calm surface, sound travels farther and faster than it does through air. It threads through every current, touches every stone, and carries stories from one end of the world to the other. The deep is an orchestra without stage or conductor, its music soft, endless, and alive. Scientists once thought that the abyss was mute, a place too vast for sound to find its way. But when they lowered microphones into the depths, they discovered a world that hums and clicks and sings. The sea speaks in frequencies beyond our hearing, low rumbles of tectonic plates shifting, high chirps of shrimp in coral reefs, long songs of whales drifting through blue distance. Each note is part of a living composition that never repeats. Imagine floating there, surrounded by that invisible music. You might hear the crackle of snapping shrimp like distant campfires scattered across the sea. Far away, a whale's call stretches for miles, a single sustained note that swells and fades as if echoing through a cathedral. The currents themselves create sound as they move, rubbing against the sea floor and the walls of trenches, producing deep, steady murmurs that pulse through the water like the ocean's heartbeat. Every sound serves a purpose. Dolphins use clicks to navigate and find food, their voices bouncing back from unseen shapes in a map made of echoes. Some fish drum their swim bladders to attract mates, others grind their teeth in gentle rasping tones to warn rivals or communicate comfort. Even the smallest creatures like krill produce faint vibrations that together create a constant whispering backdrop, the collective exhale of life itself. For humans, this hidden symphony is almost impossible to imagine. On land, sound fades quickly into air, scattering and vanishing. In the ocean, it carries, flowing endlessly along the thermocline, a layer of water that acts as an acoustic highway. A single sound can travel for hundreds, even thousands of kilometers, bending and returning, looping around the planet like a message written in waves. When submariners drift through these regions, they describe a sense of awe that borders on reverence. The world outside the hull feels alive, as though the sea itself were breathing in phrases. To listen here is to feel connected, to sense that everything, from the smallest fish to the farthest trench, is part of the same quiet conversation. The ocean's hidden voices remind us that silence is never empty. It is full of messages we haven't yet learned to translate, songs of movement, of belonging, of time. Even in darkness, the sea finds ways to speak. And if you pause long enough, you can almost hear it now, the deep, slow murmur of the earth, beneath water, whispering softly through the blue. Among all the ocean's voices, none carry as far or as deeply as those of the whales. Their songs roll through the water for hundreds of miles, crossing unseen boundaries and weaving through entire oceans. They are part lullaby, part navigation, part remembrance, a living melody older than human music, shaped by currents and time. To hear it, even in recording, is to feel the planet breathe. The first people to listen to whales through underwater microphones describe the sound as both alien and achingly familiar. Long, low notes rise and fall like sighs. Others shimmer and bend like wind through a distant canyon. These calls can last for hours, each sequence repeating with subtle variations, as if the ocean itself were improvising. Scientists believe the songs help whales communicate across vast distances, marking migration routes, attracting mates, or simply confirming their presence. I am here, you are not alone. The humpback whale is the great composer of this underwater symphony. Its song travels farther than any other creature's voice, carried by deep layers of water that act like an acoustic mirror. A single whale's melody can stretch for 20 minutes before looping again, and the same pattern may echo unchanged for months. Yet over time, the tune evolves, small phrases shifting as pods pass them from one to another, generation to generation, a shared language of melody that never stands still. Each tone feels weighted with emotion, though scientists are careful to say that emotion is a human word. Still, to the listener, there is something undeniably soulful in it. Perhaps it is the scale, the way the notes seem to rise from the heart of the planet itself, vibrating through every layer of water and bone. Or perhaps it's the rhythm, as slow and steady as the human pulse. The whales sing not to be heard in the moment, but to fill the long corridors of the deep with presence. Imagine drifting beside one. The water trembles faintly as a low note rolls past. You do not so much hear it as feel it, resonating in your chest like distant thunder. The whale moves with the weightless grace of something completely at ease in its world. Around it, small fish shimmer and spiral through the currents, drawn by the vibration. Even the ocean seems to hush, listening. To many cultures, whale songs are symbols of wisdom and peace, voices of guardians that remember when the world was new. Their songs remind us that communication does not always need words or proximity. Sometimes it is enough to send a vibration into the world and trust that it will find another heart to answer. As the sound fades, it lingers, a long, low hum in the distance. It may travel for days before it quiets. But even when the song ends, the ocean remembers, holding its echo in the water like breath waiting to be released again. When the deep quiets after a whale's song fades, other voices begin to emerge, softer, faster, more intricate. The ocean's soundscape is not a single melody, but 1,000 overlapping conversations. Each one small, essential, and full of rhythm. Every chirp, every pop, every click is a note in an invisible symphony that never truly ends. Listen closely, and you might hear the snapping shrimp, tiny creatures, no longer than a finger, yet loud enough to dominate entire stretches of coastline. They close their claws with such speed that they create bubbles collapsing in bursts of sound, sharp and crackling, like a distant fire underwater. Collectively, millions of these shrimp produce a constant static hum, a sound that sailors once compared to frying rain. It is the heartbeat of the shallows, steady and hypnotic, marking the pulse of coral reefs and mangrove roots. Other animals add higher, lighter notes. Dolphins communicate in a rapid cascade of clicks and whistles, their language so complex that researchers have spent decades trying to decode its layers. Each sound bounces off the environment, painting a world made of echoes. Through echolocation, dolphins can see with sound, identifying objects, distances, and even the internal shapes of fish. For them, hearing is sight, and sound is touch. They live in a dimension of continuous feedback, where every movement writes and rewrites the map of the water around them. Even the smallest fish contribute. Some grind their teeth or drum their swim bladders, producing low percussive tones that travel through the sand. Others hum faintly, forming a background drone that scientists call the fully biological chorus. These voices rise and fall with the time of day, quiet in the morning, growing busier by nightfall, like the murmur of a crowd settling in. To drift through this soundscape is to float in a city of whispers, every tone layered yet never chaotic. But among all these murmurs there are also long moments of silence, pauses that carry their own meaning. In the deep ocean, silence is not emptiness, it is awareness. Between each click and call, there is a breath, a stillness that allows the next sound to matter. The ocean listens as much as it speaks. Submariners often describe this quiet as profound, almost sacred. They say that in the spaces between noises, they feel the scale of the sea, endless, enveloping, alive. In those moments, the listener and the listened to become the same. The silence holds you, reminding you that you too are part of this sonic web, your own pulse and breath joining the rhythm. The ocean's voice is not uniform. It crackles, hums, sings, and waits. And within that balance, between noise and stillness, communication and listening, lies its harmony. To hear it is to be reminded that the world is alive in every frequency, from the thunder of whales to the quiet clicks of a shrimp's claw, all speaking the same language of existence. Deep beneath the waves lies a hidden pathway, a layer of water where sound travels farther than anywhere else on Earth. Scientists call it the Sofa Channel, short for Fonsen sound, fixing and ranging Chorn, but its name hardly captures its poetry. Imagine an invisible river running through the ocean, not of water, but of vibration. It is a highway for whispers, a place where even the faintest sound can journey for thousands of miles without fading. In this quiet corridor, the sea itself becomes an instrument. The sound channel forms because of a delicate balance between temperature, pressure, and density. Near the surface, the water is warm and light. Deeper down, it is cold and heavy. Between them lies a layer where those forces cancel one another out, trapping sound inside like light within glass. A whale's call entering this layer may circle the globe, curving with the Earth, reaching ears and instruments half a world away. It's as though the planet itself were listening, passing messages across its watery skin. For decades, scientists have used this natural phenomenon to study the ocean's depths. During the mid-20th century, researchers placed underwater microphones, called hydrophones, across the Pacific and Atlantic. They recorded whale songs, earthquakes, distant ship engines, and even the low, slow sounds of glaciers calving into the sea. Each vibration that entered the sound channel became part of a global conversation, a thread connecting one ocean to another. But beyond science, there is something deeply comforting in the idea itself, that the world is built to carry voices. The ocean does not let sound vanish. It cradles it, bends it, guides it, and returns it. A whisper here could one day arrive there, softened by time. In a sense, every song of a whale, every murmur of current, every note of thunder that falls into the water becomes eternal, drifting in loops through this sonic corridor, always returning home. If you close your eyes, you can imagine what it feels like to float inside the sound channel. The water around you is cool and still. The distant hum of the world passes through in long, low waves, steady as breath. There is no direction to the sound. It simply twindies ein, everywhere and nowhere at once. The body relaxes, recognizing something ancient in that vibration, something older than language. It is the sound of connection itself. The Sofa Channel reminds us that even across immense distances, the ocean listens. Every vibration, no matter how small, becomes part of its memory. The deep carries our echoes with patience, keeping them safe beneath layers of silence. It is a reminder that no sound, no presence, is ever truly lost. In the ocean's vastness, every voice finds a place to rest. For most of history, humanity looked at the ocean and saw only its surface. The glimmer of light, the crash of waves, the shifting skin of the world. What lay beneath was mystery, a silence we could not penetrate. But over time, we learned that the sea was not silent at all. It was speaking, we simply lacked the ears to hear. So we began to listen. The first true listeners of the ocean were the hydrophone operators, seed of the last century, sailors and scientists who dropped microphones into the deep and waited. Through their headphones came a world no one had ever experienced, the long, melodic songs of whales, the rhythmic creak of icebergs, the metallic groans of shifting ships, and the soft crackle of life itself. Many of them described the experience as haunting, a kind of underwater symphony that stirred both awe and humility. They had discovered that the sea was not empty, but alive with communication. Sonar, sound navigation, and ranging soon became humanity's way of mapping the unseen. By sending pulses of sound into the water and measuring their return, we began to chart the contours of the ocean floor, finding mountains, trenches, and ridges that had been hidden since the planet's birth. The pings and echoes that filled the water were our questions, the returning tones, the ocean's quiet answers. Every sound was a conversation, a dialogue between curiosity and mystery. Modern researchers use vast networks of hydrophones scattered across the globe. They record everything from the distant rumble of undersea volcanoes to the gentle patter of rain falling on the surface far above. These devices hear what we cannot: the crack of lightning striking the sea, the shuffle of sand along the continental shelf, even the soft pop of tiny air bubbles released by plankton as they breathe. Through listening, we have learned the ocean's moods, its seasons of sound, its silences, its song. Yet for all our technology, the act of listening remains profoundly human. It requires patience, stillness, and respect. The ocean does not reveal its secrets to those who rush. It rewards those who wait. The longer we listen, the more we hear patterns, rhythms, repetitions that begin to sound almost like intention. Perhaps in some way, the ocean has always been waiting for us to be quiet enough to notice. Imagine yourself inside a submersible, lights dimmed, engines off. The only sound is the hum of the deep, slow, immense, and alive. You hear whales in the distance, the soft rustle of currents, the faint tap of unknown creatures brushing past the hull. You realize that you are surrounded by stories older than language, each one told in vibration and pause. In that moment, you are not exploring, you are listening, and the ocean, vast and ancient, is listening back. There comes a moment even in the vastest sea when everything slows. The currents ease, the winds grow faint, and the long pulse of sound that fills the water softens until it becomes almost silence. It is not the silence of absence, but of rest, the kind that follows after a long song when every note has found its place. The ocean, like all living things, has its moments of sleep. Far below the restless surface where storms can rage unseen, the deep water keeps its steady calm. Down here, no wave disturbs the quiet. The only motion is the slow drift of life itself, the ascent and descent of tiny creatures, following the rhythm of day and night. They rise toward the faint light when the sun fades and return to the depths. When it returns, a migration that has happened without pause for millions of years. Even this endless motion feels drowsy, like the breathing of a planet at rest. If you could listen now, you would hear less sound and more space between sounds. The distant echoes of whales fade into faint sighs. The sharp crackle of shrimp diminishes to a gentle hiss. The hum of currents lowers to a murmur, a heartbeat so slow that it feels eternal. In this stillness, every sound that remains feels sacred. The pulse of a fish fin, the quiet shift of sediment, the whisper of water brushing against itself. It is the closest thing the sea has to sleep. At the surface, the moon's reflection stretches like silver thread, marking time in light instead of sound. Waves roll softly, their edges glowing faintly with the last traces of bioluminescence. The world above and the world below seem to mirror one another, both wrapped in the same calm breath. Somewhere far away, a whale drifts in darkness, its great heart slowing as it sinks into the quiet layers of the sea. Even the largest beings rest within this rhythm. For creatures of the deep, rest is not stillness but balance. Muscles loosen, currents cradle, pressure holds. Everything continues, but more gently, as if the entire ocean were dreaming. The deep remembers every vibration, every echo, but for now, it chooses to listen to nothing at all. The quiet is total, but it does not feel empty. It feels complete, a pause that belongs to something vast and awake even as it sleeps. Imagine floating in that calm. There is no beginning or end, no up or down, only drifting. The body becomes as light as thought, the mind as wide as the sea. Around you, the world breathes once, deeply, and rests. When the ocean sleeps, it invites everything within it to do the same. The last thing you hear is your own pulse joining its rhythm, a soft, slow echo fading into peace. After long silence, the ocean begins to stir again. A low rhythm moves through the water, a slow, invisible tide that carries warmth, salt, and memory across the world. These are the Forden currents, the circulatory system of the planet. They are not storms or waves, but vast rivers of motion flowing through every depth, linking one horizon to another. To drift within them is to feel the heartbeat of Earth itself. Each current has its own story. At the surface, warm water moves from the equator toward the poles, while colder, heavier water sinks and returns beneath. Together they form a global loop that connects every ocean into one. Scientists call this the thermohaline circulation, a name both complex and quiet, describing a process as simple as breathing, warm and cold, rise and fall, inhale and exhale. The sea breathes through these movements, and in doing so, it sustains the rhythm of the world. Imagine this motion as a vast, slow pulse. It takes centuries for a single drop of water to travel the entire circuit, from tropical sunlight to polar darkness and back again. Along the way, it carries stories, traces of salt, warmth. A molecule that once brushed the coast of an island may one day glide beneath the Antarctic ice, only to rise again near a coral reef. In its journey, it touches everything, a traveler through time, not distance. The surface currents guide weather, shaping the winds and seasons we know. They warm continents, stir clouds, and steer migrating creatures. Beneath them, deep currents move unseen, redistributing oxygen, carbon, and nutrients. The silent architects of climate and balance. Without them, the world would be divided. Warm seas growing warmer, cold depths growing still. But the ocean's patience keeps everything in conversation, blending extremes into harmony. When satellites map these currents, they appear as swirling patterns, vast spirals of color winding through blue. Yet the reality beneath those images is calmer than it looks. The motion is slow, unhurried, and constant, as though the planet has chosen steadiness over speed. To witness it, even in imagination, is to realize how deeply interconnected the world truly is. No wave breaks in isolation. No breath of air moves alone. Everything that stirs in the sea touches something else in return. If you listen closely, you can almost feel it now. The water beneath your imagined body rising and falling in time with the planet's breath. The soundless throb of circulation. The unseen pulse that links every coastline, every current, every cloud. The earth does not beat with a heart of flesh, but with water in motion. And as the currents flow, they remind us that even the quietest movements, the ones that take lifetimes to complete, are what keep the world alive. Among all the ocean's flowing paths, few are as remarkable or as well known as the Fingulf Stream, a river within the sea that begins in the warmth of the Caribbean and travels thousands of kilometers northward, tracing the curve of the Atlantic like a slow-moving ribbon of life. It is the sea's most enduring traveler, an invisible hand that touches coasts, climates, and histories without ever being seen. Born from the meeting of tropical sunlight and the quiet spin of the earth, the Gulf Stream gathers near the Gulf of Mexico, where waters shimmer in shades of turquoise and jade. There, heat accumulates, energy builds, and a current begins to stir. Pushed by wind and rotation, it slips through the Florida Straits and out into the open ocean, flowing at a pace both gentle and unstoppable. At its core, the current moves faster than a person can swim. Yet when viewed from above, it appears utterly calm, just a slow, endless drift. As it journeys north, the stream carries warmth across the Atlantic, tempering entire climates. Western Europe owes much of its mild weather to this current. Without it, winter would tighten its grip and the world above would feel very different. But the Gulf Stream does more than move heat. It carries seeds, spores, plankton, and tiny drifting lives, scattering them like stardust along its route. Fish ride its edges, turtles follow its path, and whales glide along its boundaries, using it as a road through the sea. Every twist of its flow is a migration, every eddy a cradle for new life. Imagine being suspended within it, the water warmer than the depths around you, moving with a purpose so vast you can barely sense its direction. The current doesn't rush, it persuades. You drift with it as clouds form overhead, their shapes drawn by the same forces guiding the sea below. The air, the water, the wind, all part of one slow choreography. Eventually, the Gulf Stream reaches the cold embrace of the North Atlantic. There, its waters cool and sink, diving beneath the surface to begin their return southward as a deep, quiet flow. What rises in heat must descend in cold, completing a cycle that takes centuries to finish. The current's journey never truly ends. It simply changes form, like breath exhaled into the vastness of the world. Sailors once relied on this current, letting it carry their ships home faster, their sails filled by steady winds born from its warmth. Even now, satellites trace its serpentine path, a glowing thread of motion stitched across the ocean. To look upon it is to see balance in motion, the planet's way of blending warmth and cold, light and shadow, north and south. The Gulf Stream reminds us that connection is not a straight line but a circle, always moving, always returning, quietly keeping the world in rhythm. The ocean's movement is not only about motion, it is about exchange. Every current that circles the globe carries more than warmth and salt. It carries nourishment. Invisible to the eye, these drifting highways of water transport the building blocks of life from one corner of the planet to another. With every rotation, the sea feeds itself, turning flow into renewal. Near the surface, sunlight and carbon mingle to awaken plankton, the tiny, drifting plants and microbes that form the foundation of the ocean's food web. They bloom in endless patterns, rising toward light each morning, sinking toward darkness each night. But like gardens on land, they need nutrients, nitrogen, iron, phosphorus, the quiet minerals of growth. And those come from below, lifted upward by the ocean's careful choreography of currents. Where cold, nutrient-rich water rises from the deep to replace warmer layers above, scientists call it tendy upwelling. These places are the ocean's fields, invisible farms that bloom with life. From Peru's coast to the shores of Africa, from California to the Arctic Circle, upwelling zones shimmer with abundance. Fish gather in vast schools, whales follow their scent, and seabirds wheel overhead, feeding on what the sea has offered up. It's a cycle older than mountains, written in the gentle mathematics of flow. Even far from these hotspots, the ocean's circulation spreads nourishment everywhere it goes. The Gulf Stream, the Antarctic circumpolar current, the deep thermohaline flow, all act as conveyors of generosity. Each drop of water carries trace minerals from the ocean floor, drifting upward, outward, onward. What was once dust from the Sahara becomes plankton bloom in the Atlantic. What began as volcanic ash feeds life half a world away. The sea turns decay into sustenance, silence into song. Imagine this quiet exchange as you drift along a slow current. The water around you feels alive, not because of what you see, but because of what it carries. Every invisible particle is a promise, potential life waiting for its turn to rise. The movement is gentle, patient, perfectly balanced. Nothing in the ocean hurries. Everything circulates in its own time. The deep gives to the surface returns to the deep, a continuous dialogue that never ends. In this way, the ocean behaves like a single vast organism, each current a vein, each upwelling a heartbeat. The sea sustains itself not by holding on, but by letting go, by giving what it has and trusting that what leaves will one day return. There is a quiet lesson in that rhythm, that true abundance comes not from accumulation, but from exchange. Beneath the waves, nourishment is not an event, but a flow. It is the unseen generosity of motion, the kindness of currents. And through it, the planet breathes, a single, endless inhale and exhale that keeps all life afloat. Take a slow, steady breath. The air that fills your lungs carries the invisible gift of the sea, more than half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere. Every second breath you take was born in water. The ocean does not simply cradle life, it sustains it. Without its quiet work, every forest, every meadow, every living creature above the waves would fall still. The planet breathes because the ocean does. Near the surface, where sunlight still filters through, live countless microscopic plants, known as phytoplankton. They are the ocean's green pulse, single cells drifting in endless numbers, each one capable of performing photosynthesis. With every ray of sunlight, they transform carbon dioxide and water into sugar and oxygen, exhaling life into the sea and eventually into the air. Though invisible to the naked eye, they are as essential as all the trees of Earth combined. Together, they form a planetary forest, that sways not in wind, but in current. When conditions are right, these tiny organisms bloom in vast clouds that stretch for hundreds of kilometers, patterns of turquoise and jade visible from space. As they drift, they feed small grazers like krill and copepods, which in turn nourish fish, whales, and birds. But even as they live briefly and die quickly, their legacy endures. The oxygen they release dissolves into the water, rises through waves and mixes with the sky. Each bubble breaking on the surface is a breath shared between worlds. Beneath the shimmering surface, the ocean's deep currents play their part as well. They circulate oxygen downward, carrying it to where light cannot reach. There, it becomes the quiet gift that allows slow, patient life to continue. Worms crawling through sediment, fish resting in stillness, bacteria recycling what remains. Even at the bottom of the world, where the sea lies black and cold, the breath of plankton finds its way, carried by the persistence of motion. Every inhalation we take on land is connected to these unseen gardens. Every storm that stirs the sea, every ray of light that touches the surface, every wave that folds into foam, all help release the ocean's breath into the sky. The balance is fragile yet steady, a conversation of air and water. When the wind sweeps across the waves, it carries with it the faint memory of plankton, of sunlight captured, transformed, and given away. Imagine standing at the edge of the sea and breathing deeply. The air smells faintly of salt and life, of things both ancient and new. That is the ocean speaking, quietly reminding you of its generosity. It asks for nothing in return but respect, a recognition that the rhythm of our lungs mirrors the rhythm of its tides. The next time you exhale, think of it as an offering. One breath returned to the water that made it possible. The ocean breathes with you, and through that shared breath, the world remains alive. If the Earth had a pulse, it would be measured not only in movement but in temperature, the subtle warmth and coolness that make life possible. And in this rhythm, the ocean is the planet's quiet partner. It absorbs heat when the world grows too warm, releases it when the air grows cold, and smooths the sharp edges of climate with infinite patience. Beneath its surface lies the memory of sunlight, stored and shared over centuries. Water has a gift that no other element possesses. It holds heat without haste. The sun's energy sinks into the top few meters of sea, where waves churn it gently, spreading warmth across currents that travel thousands of kilometers. This heat doesn't stay in one place. It moves, carried north and south, east and west, in patterns that define seasons and shape winds. Because of the ocean, summers are softer, winters milder, storms less severe than they might otherwise be. The sea is a vast buffer between the sun's fire and the fragile life it sustains. When we think of climate, we imagine air, clouds, rain, wind. But in truth, the ocean writes most of that script. Its temperature governs the birth of hurricanes, the growth of monsoons, the paths of storms. Even the quiet drift of fog over a bay begins with a difference of warmth between air and water. Each breath of weather starts as an exchange, the sea giving or taking heat, maintaining the planet's balance with calm precision. Deep below the surface, the ocean acts as memory. Currents carry heat from the tropics into colder regions, where it can remain hidden for decades before slowly rising again. The deep absorbs excess, holding it until the world is ready to cool. In this way, the ocean is not simply reacting, it is regulating, a patient guardian that steadies Earth's heartbeat through time. Imagine the vastness of that responsibility. Every breeze over your skin, every quiet rain, every snowflake falling far inland, owes something to the calm beneath the waves. The ocean's influence reaches everywhere, though it asks for no recognition. It works silently, tempering extremes, ensuring that no season lingers too long. Its rhythm is slower than human thought, but its results touch every living thing. If you stand on a shore at dusk and feel the air shift as the tide changes, you can sense this balance. The coolness that drifts inland is a message from the deep, a reminder of equilibrium. The planet does not survive by force but by harmony. The ocean, in its patience, teaches this lesson perfectly, that stability is not the absence of change, but the presence of grace within it. Everything in the ocean moves in circles. The water that rises will one day fall. The warmth that drifts north will return as cold to the south. The breath you exhale becomes a current. The current becomes a cloud, and the cloud falls back into sea and soil. The ocean teaches this truth gently. reminding us that nothing ever ends. It only changes form. Beneath the waves, the planet practices eternity with every motion. When rain strikes the surface of the sea, it becomes part of a story that spans centuries. Droplets join currents, currents blend with depths, and somewhere far away that same water will rise again as vapor, carried by wind into sky. It might fall upon a mountain, melt into a river, or return to the sea's open mouth once more. The ocean's patience is infinite. It accepts everything, the warmth of sunlight, the weight of rivers, the quiet fall of rain, and gives all of it back, cleansed and renewed. In this cycle, time loses its sharpness. A single drop of water may travel through countless transformations before returning home. It may nourish a plankton bloom, freeze into ice, or flow through a coral reef. And when it finally returns to the deep, it carries the memory of its journey, the minerals it touched, the warmth it absorbed, the life it sustained. Nothing is wasted, not even the smallest fragment of experience. The same rhythm shapes the creatures of the ocean. Plankton bloom and fade, feeding fish that feed whales that feed the sea once again. Currents deliver oxygen, waves sculpt coastlines, tides pull life back and forth across the sand. The balance never falters because it does not seek permanence. It exists in motion, in the quiet acceptance that change is the only constant. The sea breathes out life, takes it in again, and continues without pause. If you could see this cycle from above, you would notice patterns repeating, spirals of water turning upon themselves, gyres rotating like the slow gears of a clock, too vast to read. The planet spins, the ocean circulates, and together they create the rhythm we call climate, the pulse we call weather, the stability we call home. And within that vast machinery, every heartbeat and breath of every living thing becomes part of the same design. As you imagine this, let yourself feel small, not in insignificance, but in belonging. You are a drop in this endless ocean of connection, moving, changing, returning. The air you breathe was once water. The water you drink was once cloud. The cloud you see will one day return to sea. The ocean is not separate from us. It is us, cycling endlessly through time. In its endless patience, the sea whispers the most reassuring truth of all. Nothing is lost. Everything returns. The rhythm continues, quiet and eternal, carrying life forward like a tide that never forgets its way home. Water remembers, not in words or images, but in motion. In the slow shaping of coastlines, the carving of valleys, the smoothing of stone, every wave that breaks on a shore carries a memory of where it has been, a whisper of ancient storms, a trace of the mountains it once eroded. The ocean is the planet's oldest historian, writing its stories in the language of tides and time. Long before cities rose on land, the sea already held its own architecture. Coral reefs grew like living cathedrals, each polyp laying down its foundation upon the last, forming structures so vast they could be seen from space. Beneath them, currents wove patterns in the sand that echoed the spirals of galaxies. The ocean has always been building and erasing, creating forms only to reshape them again. Its patience is infinite, its artistry quiet. Humans came late to this vast story, but the ocean took notice. Our ancestors followed its edges, learning its moods, trusting its guidance. They left traces, stone tools buried in coastal caves, shipwrecks hidden beneath layers of silt, entire harbors swallowed by time and tide. Some of these places still rest beneath the waves, untouched for millennia. A wall here, a pillar there, a fragment of pottery glowing under shifting light. To dive among them is to move through the Earth's memory, not ruins, but reminders. Scientists and archaeologists often speak of the ocean as both preserver and destroyer. It consumes wood and iron, yet it can cradle fragile artifacts untouched for thousands of years. The same salt that corrodes also seals. Within shipwrecks, jars still hold grains of wheat from ancient civilizations. Amphorae lie perfectly arranged, as if waiting for their owners to return. The ocean's hands are soft and patient. It keeps what we lose until we are ready to remember. There are stories in every sea of lost islands, sunken lands, forgotten coasts now miles underwater. These tales, half history and half dream, remind us that the line between myth and memory is often blurred by waves. Civilizations once lived where now only fish swim, their laughter replaced by the sound of currents. The ocean holds those echoes, not as ghosts, but as continuity, a gentle blending of what was and what remains. If you listen carefully, You can almost hear it, the murmur of the deep, carrying the weight of time without sadness. The ocean does not mourn what it covers. It simply keeps moving, transforming memory into rhythm. To float above its hidden cities is to feel both past and present beneath you, to know that everything eventually returns to water. The sea is the keeper of memory because it never stops changing, and in that change, nothing is truly lost. Every ripple that touches a shore has already touched the ruins of worlds before us, carrying their stories forward, one wave at a time. Across the world, the ocean conceals stories of places that once touched the sky, cities now silent, temples buried under coral, streets traced only by the shadows of fish. Every culture has whispered of them, lands swallowed by the sea, civilizations lost to tide and time. These tales, part memory and part imagination, reveal something deep within us, the sense that water holds the forgotten chapters of our own story. Off the coast of Japan lies Finjanaguni, a vast formation of terraces, staircases, and pillars carved from stone. Divers who swim there describe the eerie precision of its lines, the way sunlight filters down to illuminate what looks like an ancient plaza. Some believe it is a natural creation, the sea sculpting rock into illusion. Others insist it was once a city, built thousands of years ago before rising waters reclaimed it. Either way, the effect is haunting, a geometry of mystery resting in quiet blue. In the Sunday Mediterranean, off the shores of Egypt, lie the ruins of Heraklion Heian and Funafusa cities that thrived when the pyramids were young. For centuries they existed only in myth, mentioned by historians and poets, until divers found them again. Statues standing upright in the sand, roads leading nowhere, temple columns draped in seagrass. Gold coins still glint among the corals. The faces of pharaohs stare upward through the water, unbothered by the weight of centuries. The sea, it seems, is kinder to stone than to memory. Farther west, near India's coast, the Gulf of Kamatade hides evidence of ancient settlement, artifacts embedded in silt that once formed riverbanks now submerged. And in the Caribbean, legends speak of cities beyond the horizon, their lights extinguished by great waves long ago. Whether real or imagined, these stories share the same tone, a gentle awe for the sea's power to both erase and preserve. The ocean gives, and it takes, and in doing so, it turns human creation into timeless art. When explorers descend to these sites, they describe an uncanny calm. Fish swim through doorways where people once walked. Coral blooms where fires once burned. The silence feels peaceful, not mournful, as if the sea has offered sanctuary to what the surface could no longer hold. Sunlight streaming through water acts like a benediction, painting the stones in gold and blue. Time here has no sharp edges. It drifts, as patient as the tide. Perhaps the fascination with lost cities is less about what we might find than what they make us feel. They remind us that nothing, not even civilization, stands apart from nature's rhythm. All things built by hand will one day return to the elements. Yet there is comfort in that thought. The ocean's embrace is not punishment, but transformation. What sinks does not vanish. It becomes part of something vaster, eternal, and serene, the sea's living archive of human dreams. Every ship that has ever set sail carries two journeys, one across the water and one into time. The first ends when the vessel reaches its destination. The second begins when it does not. Beneath the world's oceans, millions of shipwrecks lie scattered, wooden hulls and iron skeletons resting in eternal calm. Each one is a story paused mid-sentence, a memory suspended between history and silence. Some rest in shallow coves, still touched by sunlight. Divers glide among them like visitors in a forgotten cathedral, beams of light passing through open decks. Fish drifting through rusted corridors. Coral claims the rails, anemones bloom along ropes, and schools of silver fish sweep through doorways that once led to cabins and cargo holds. The sea wastes nothing. What was once human endeavor becomes habitat, art, and ecosystem. Wood softens into reef. Iron grows coral. Even decay becomes creation. Others sleep far deeper, where light never reaches. There, pressure guards them in perfect stillness. In the cold North Atlantic lies the Swantitanic, her name forever spoken in reverence. 2 miles below the surface, she rests quietly, her grand staircase buried beneath layers of silt. For decades, no one saw her. When explorers finally did, what they found was not tragedy preserved but transformation. A ship once filled with noise and light, now home to strange new life. Rust-colored bacteria feed on the iron, shaping delicate filaments called rusticles, which hang like curtains in the deep. Even the grandest vessel, it seems, becomes part of the ocean's patient art. In warmer waters, the Fisthistlegorm, a World War II cargo ship, lies off Egypt's coast, its hull split open to reveal the cargo it never delivered. Trucks, motorcycles, and boots perfectly arranged as if still waiting for orders. Sea fans spread across the machinery, softening hard lines into flowing sculpture. The wreck is silent but not sad. It is busy, alive with fish weaving between headlights and eels, resting in the shadows of forgotten crates. History becomes a living reef, each rivet and beam now part of a new story written in coral and motion. What makes shipwrecks so mesmerizing is not their loss, but their stillness. They are reminders of motion, paused, of human ambition meeting the ocean's vast indifference, then finding peace within it. Time slows around them, bubbles rise, lights fade, and the sea's quiet pulse resumes. The wrecks do not resist, they yield, and in that yielding they endure. Perhaps the ocean holds these vessels as it holds everything, gently, without judgment. Every ship that sank added another layer to the sea's memory, another whisper in its endless archive. What we built to conquer the water now serves it. The ships rest, the sea dreams, and together they tell a story not of defeat, but of return. In the deep, nothing is wasted, not even a ship's last voyage. Beneath the silt and coral, beneath even the wrecks of ships and lost civilizations, lies an older record still, a library written in stone. The ocean floor is layered with pages of history, each one made not of paper, but of sediment and time. Every grain of sand has fallen through ages. Every shell that settles becomes part of a chapter millions of years in the making. The sea is not only a keeper of the recent past, it is the planet's first and most enduring archive. In the dark mud of the deep basins lie microfossils, the remains of tiny organisms that once floated near the surface. When they died, they sank slowly, drifting downward for weeks or months before resting in silence. Their delicate shells of calcium and silica formed sediments that over millennia compressed into rock. These invisible skeletons record the temperature of ancient oceans, the chemistry of ancient air, the rhythm of ancient climates. To hold one in your hand, lighter than dust, is to hold the breath of a world long gone. Deeper still, the seabed hides the bones of giants. Fossilized whales, ancient sharks, and sea reptiles lie entombed beneath layers of stone. Some are preserved so perfectly that scientists can trace the curve of a fin or the impression of a flipper pressed into clay before it hardened into eternity. In deserts that were once seas, paleontologists uncover skeletons older than mountains, reminders that water has shaped even the land we now walk on. Every fossil, whether of shell or bone, is a bridge across time, proof that life endures by leaving gentle traces. The ocean floor is also a canvas for thief-and trace fossils, not bodies but movements, burrows, tracks, feeding trails, the small signatures of creatures that passed briefly through existence. They mark where worms tunneled, where crustaceans fed, where fish brushed the sand. These faint lines are stories written in touch rather than form, moments of life immortalized in silence. Together they create a map of motion frozen in stone, a memory of the sea's own choreography. When scientists drill into these sediments, they read the Earth's autobiography layer by layer. Each stratum holds a different era, the rise and fall of oceans, the flicker of ice ages, the ashes of volcanoes. Between them lie moments of calm, epochs of stability that lasted millions of years. The ocean has seen continents drift, climates shift, and species rise and vanish. Yet through it all, it has continued to record quietly, patiently, without fail. If you could listen closely enough, you might hear those stones humming with the memory of waves that broke before any human stood to watch them. The fossils of the deep are not relics of death, but of persistence, reminders that the world has always been alive, always adapting, always remembering. In the stillness of the seafloor, the ocean keeps its oldest promises, to change, to endure, and to remember everything. Every ocean carries a story of a lost world, but none is as enduring as Atlantis Sea, the city said to have vanished beneath the waves in a single day and night. The tale first appeared in the writings of Plato more than 2,000 years ago, described not merely as a tragedy, but as a lesson, a civilization so advanced and proud that the sea itself rose to remind it of humility. Whether history or allegory, the story has never stopped echoing. It drifts like a current through time, whispered by waves and retold by dreamers. In every century, explorers have searched for it. Some imagine Atlantis in the Atlantic, near the Azores or the Caribbean. Others trace it to the Mediterranean, buried beneath volcanic ash. Theories bloom and fade like tides, each new discovery of a temple, a statue, or an ancient map stirring the old longing to find proof that such a place once existed. But perhaps the power of Atlantis lies not in where it was, but in what it represents, the human desire to remember what was lost, to touch the unreachable, to believe that beauty and wisdom might return from beneath the sea. Imagine it now, not as ruin, but as dream. Sunlight filters through water, falling in pale ribbons upon stone streets. Columns rise from the sand like the bones of a forgotten song. Fish move through archways, seaweed sways where gardens once bloomed. The city does not look dead. It looks asleep, resting beneath the quiet pulse of the waves. The sea hums above it like a heartbeat, and every ripple feels like the turning of a page in a story that never ends. The myth of Atlantis endures because it speaks to something more universal than loss. It mirrors the rhythm of the world itself: creation, destruction, renewal. Every civilization, like every tide, has its rise and fall. The sea reminds us that nothing is permanent, yet nothing is truly gone. Even if Atlantis never existed, its idea does, a reminder that wisdom is fragile. That balance must be cherished, that pride can sink even the brightest towers if not tempered with grace. In many ways, the legend of Atlantis belongs to the ocean as much as to us. It is the sea's way of telling a story about time, how easily the grand can dissolve into quiet, how effortlessly the surface can hide entire worlds beneath it. Perhaps as we listen to the waves, we are hearing not just water, but memory itself, the echo of Atlantis and of all things that once were, still moving gently in the deep. If you close your eyes now, the sound of the sea might carry that whisper to you, not as warning, but as comfort. Nothing is ever truly lost, it says. The water holds everything, not to bury, but to keep. Atlantis, lives wherever wonder, refuses to fade. To explore the ocean's past is to move through a cathedral of quiet. There are no voices to guide you, no wind to mark direction. Only the slow rhythm of your breath and the sound of your heart blending with the deep. Every diver, every scientist who descends in search of history becomes an archaeologist of silence, reading stories that the sea has written without words. Down here, discovery is not loud or triumphant. It feels more like listening. The ocean guards its secrets carefully, but not cruelly. It preserves rather than erases, sealing memories beneath silt and coral, keeping them safe from time. When explorers brush aside the sediment covering an artifact, a carved tablet, a fragment of pottery, a bronze statue half buried in sand, they are not uncovering the past so much as waking it gently. The moment feels almost sacred. No applause, no noise, just the slow realization that something thought lost is still here, breathing quietly in the dark. Modern technology allows us to see deeper than ever before. Fentruf in remotely operated vehicles glide through the blackness with soft lights, capturing images of ruins and relics without disturbing them. Sonar scanners trace outlines in the sand. Submersibles drift over landscapes unseen since the world was young. Yet for all the machines, the act remains deeply human. Behind every flicker of a control panel is a person holding their breath, feeling the weight of connection. The same awe our ancestors must have felt standing on the shore, staring into mystery. The sea rewards humility. It reveals only what it chooses in its own time. For every city found, there are 1,000 still sleeping. For every artifact recovered, countless others remain untouched. But perhaps that is as it should be. The ocean's silence teaches patience, reminding us that knowledge is not possession. It is participation, a quiet joining of past and present, of curiosity and care. Imagine drifting through a field of amphorae scattered across the seafloor, each one a vessel that once carried oil, wine, grain, the essentials of life. They rest now like candles extinguished, yet they still speak. Their curves catch the light, their surfaces hold fingerprints of the hands that shaped them. Time has not erased their story. It has translated it into stillness, To look upon them is to feel the continuity of human touch across millennia. When the explorers return to the surface, they often describe an unexpected calm, as if they've left a place that asked them not to disturb its peace. The sea does not scold, it simply invites quiet understanding. Every discovery is a reminder that history does not end when it disappears. It settles, rests, and waits to be remembered. The archaeology of silence teaches that the ocean is not a graveyard, but a sanctuary, a keeper of stories, a patient witness to the long conversation between life and time. And in its depths, we find not endings, but echoes. Proof that even in silence, the world continues to speak. If you look at the ocean long enough, it begins to resemble the sky. Both are endless, both shimmer with shifting light, and both invite the same feeling. That quiet awe born from standing before something larger than understanding. The surface of the sea reflects the heavens so perfectly that, for a moment, it's impossible to tell where one begins and the other ends. The water becomes a mirror for infinity, and infinity returns the gaze. Astronomers and oceanographers share more than curiosity. They share perspective. One looks upward, the other downward, but both seek to understand worlds hidden by distance and darkness. The deep ocean is often called Earth's inner space, an alien world within our own planet. Its crushing pressures, strange life forms, and vast emptiness mirror the mysteries of the cosmos. To study the sea is to look into a reflection of the universe. The same silence, the same beauty, the same unknowable depth. Imagine standing at the edge of a calm bay at night. The stars tremble across the water's skin, scattered and endless. Each small ripple bends and reshapes them, turning distant galaxies into living patterns. If you stare long enough, you begin to sense a connection, that the hydrogen that fuels the stars is the same that makes up the water before you. The atoms within your own breath once drifted through the sea and through the sky. A cycle of existence measured not in years, but in eons. The connection runs deeper still. Scientists have discovered that the salt in the sea and the metals in our blood were forged in ancient stars. When those stars lived and died, they scattered their elements into space, where they eventually gathered into clouds, planets, and oceans. To touch seawater is to touch the residue of stars. Every drop carries traces of the cosmos. Sodium and magnesium born in stellar furnaces, dissolved into the language of tides. The ocean is, quite literally, the sky turned liquid. As above, so below, galaxies swirl in the heavens as currents swirl beneath the waves. The Milky Way stretches across the night sky like a mirrored path to the ocean's bioluminescent trails. Both glow softly against darkness. Both remind us that life thrives not in spite of the void, but because of it. In the sky, stars burn to give light. In the sea, creatures glow to survive. Both illuminate the unknown, patiently, beautifully. When you gaze upward or downward, you are seeing two sides of the same mystery. The sea reflects the sky not just in color, but in meaning. Both hold the story of where we come from and where we are going, an endless conversation between depth and distance. The next time you stand by the shore, look closely. Every star above you is already shining in the waves below. The ocean is not just Earth's reflection of the sky, it is its memory. The ocean and the cosmos have always called to the same kind of soul, the wanderer, the listener, the dreamer of distance. To explore either is to step into uncertainty, to surrender to vastness and trust curiosity to light the way. Whether diving beneath miles of water or floating beyond the edge of Earth, explorers and astronauts share the same heartbeat, a rhythm of wonder mixed with humility. The first deep sea divers and the first astronauts faced identical fears, pressure and emptiness, darkness and isolation. They moved through environments utterly indifferent to human life, yet filled with beauty, so profound it silenced every other thought. Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh, who in 1960 descended to the deepest point of the Mariana Trench, described the experience not as frightening but peaceful, a stillness beyond measure, like a dream with no up or down. 9 years later, when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon, his words carried that same calm, that S1 small step, different directions. Same spirit. The suits that protect astronauts from the vacuum of space are cousins to those that shield divers from the crushing pressure of the abyss. The same technology that maps distant galaxies helps oceanographers map the seafloor. Satellites that look outward also look inward, measuring currents and tides from above. The ocean, it turns out, is our training ground for the stars, a vast, silent classroom teaching us how to exist within infinity. Both realms reveal our fragility. To venture into them is to acknowledge that we are small and temporary, but also capable of touching eternity for a moment. Astronauts often speak of the overview effect, the overwhelming realization, upon seeing Earth from space, that borders and divisions vanish, replaced by a single, luminous blue world. Divers describe a similar sensation when descending into the deep, the moment when the surface disappears and only endless water remains, and with it a sense of unity. Above and below, the feeling is the same, awe tempered by belonging. Imagine an astronaut gazing down at the Pacific, watching sunlight ripple across its surface, unaware that miles below, a submersible drifts through the same light, refracted into blue. Two explorers separated by direction, yet joined in perspective. Both listen to silence, both move slowly. Both carry the same truth back home, that discovery is not about reaching new places, but about seeing the old ones anew. The ocean and the sky mirror each other, not only in vastness, but in invitation. They ask us to look, to wonder, to learn without conquering. Each frontier expands not the map, but the mind. The diver and the astronaut are reflections of one another, two faces of curiosity, gazing into the same mystery from opposite sides of the world. And through their journeys, we are reminded that exploration is not escape from home. It is the long, patient act of coming to understand that we have always been part of something far greater, one universe, one ocean, one endless depth of wonder. If life can exist here, it can exist almost anywhere. That thought often comes to scientists who descend into the ocean's harshest realms, places where heat boils from vents, where pressure could crush steel, where sunlight has never been seen. Yet even in these impossible conditions, life persists. The deep sea, in its darkness and silence, is proof that life does not need comfort to endure. It needs only balance, adaptation, and time. At the edges of hydrothermal vents, where the Earth exhales mineral, rich plumes hot enough to melt metal, entire ecosystems flourish. Bacteria cling to rocks, slick with sulfur, converting chemicals into energy through fine chemosynthesis. From them rises a food web so complex and self-contained that it could thrive without a single photon of light. Giant tube worms, ghostly white and red, grow meters tall, their bodies home to colonies of microbes that feed them from within. Around them drift blind crabs, shrimp, and fish, each shaped by heat, pressure, and persistence. It is life as collaboration, fragile yet unbreakable. Elsewhere, beneath Antarctica's frozen shelves, scientists have found creatures moving through black water, sealed beneath ice for thousands of years. Tiny amphipods swim among crystals, their motions slow but sure. In the coldest temperatures known on Earth, where liquid water barely exists, these beings continue their quiet cycles, breathing, feeding, waiting. Their existence feels improbable, almost miraculous. Yet to them, this is simply home. Astrobiologists, scientists who study the possibility of life beyond Earth, look to these examples with reverence. If microbes can thrive in boiling darkness or frozen silence, then perhaps life could exist beneath the icy crust of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, or in the hidden oceans of faint Enceladus, orbiting Saturn. Both worlds are believed to hold liquid water beneath their surfaces, warmed by the same geothermal forces that feed our own deep-sea vents. The creatures of Earth's abyss may be the closest reflections of life elsewhere, messengers across distance, reminding us that the universe, too, may hum with quiet persistence. The discovery that life can bloom in extremes has changed how we think of existence itself. It tells us that life is not rare or fragile, but adaptable, a pattern of resilience written into the cosmos, from the heat of volcanic vents to the ice of polar seas, from the pressure of the abyss to the vacuum of space. The impulse to survive is universal. Life endures not by strength, but by harmony with its surroundings. Imagine those far-off oceans, dark and endless, drifting under alien skies. If they are alive, they will look familiar, not in form, but in spirit. They will glow softly, feed slowly, and move with patience. Just like the deep sea, they will remind us that we are not exceptions to the universe, but examples of its most natural law, that wherever there is balance, there will be life. Every movement of the sea is a conversation with the sky. Above us, the moon drifts silently through its orbit, and below the ocean responds, rising, falling, breathing in time with its distant partner. It is an ancient rhythm, older than mountains, older than life itself. The tides are the moon's soft whisper, pulling gently on the water until the entire planet moves in slow, eternal dance. The moon's gravity tugs at Earth, drawing the oceans upward toward it. At the same time, the planet's rotation creates another bulge of water on the opposite side, and so two tides are born, one facing the moon, one facing away. Between them, the world turns, and the waters follow, flowing endlessly from shore to shore. Each tide is a gesture of connection, the sea reaching up toward the heavens, then bowing down again in gratitude. This rise and fall, steady and sure, is the pulse of the earth made visible. Stand by the shore at dusk, and you can feel it. The water creeps higher along the sand, inch by inch, as though the planet itself were breathing. The sound of the waves deepens, their rhythm slows. Crabs retreat to higher ground, gulls circle, and the air grows cooler. When the tide begins to recede, it does so without hurry, carrying with it the shells and driftwood left as small offerings to the moon. The ocean keeps its promises, always returning, always responding. For centuries, humans have marked time by the moon's phases and the movement of tides. Fishermen watched the waters pull to know when to cast their nets. Sailors charted their voyages by lunar light. Even poets and lovers have felt its gravity, sensing in its cycles the reflection of their own hearts. The moon, pale and constant, governs not only the sea's surface but the moods of those who watch it, its waxing and waning, a reminder of life's own rhythm of fullness and release. In the deep ocean, far from the shore, the moon's influence is softer, but no less profound. Entire ecosystems migrate in step with its pull. Tiny plankton rise toward the surface under moonlight and sink again as it fades, feeding the layers of life between. The tides stir nutrients through the depths, blending water and memory in ceaseless circulation. Every creature, from the smallest shrimp to the largest whale, lives within that rhythm, guided by an unseen hand in the sky. If you listen carefully on a still night, you might sense it within yourself. That subtle pull, that inner tide. The same force that lifts the ocean's surface also moves the water within our bodies, aligning us, however faintly, with the moon's patient gravity. Its pull reminds us that connection needs no words, no distance, no effort. The sea rises because the moon exists. We breathe because the world turns. It is all one motion, one tide, one shared heartbeat between ocean and sky. The ocean never stops speaking to the sky. Every ripple, every shimmer of sunlight on water sends messages upward, invisible exchanges that become clouds, rain, and wind. What begins as a whisper on the sea's surface can rise into a storm or drift gently across continents as morning mist. The air above and the water below are not separate. They are one continuous breath, trading energy and emotion in an endless loop. When sunlight warms the surface, the sea responds with evaporation. Molecules of water lifted into the air like small silent sighs. They rise through cooler layers of atmosphere, gathering and condensing into clouds. Each cloud is a collection of journeys, ocean water transformed into sky. Some will travel for thousands of kilometers, carried by wind before returning home as rain. When that rain falls, it feeds rivers, fills lakes, nourishes forests, and eventually finds its way back to the sea. The ocean does not lose anything by giving, it completes itself by sharing. From this quiet exchange, weather is born. The warmth of tropical waters fuels cyclones. The temperature contrast between currents stirs winds, and the meeting of air and sea creates the delicate balance that sustains all life. Even the gentlest breeze that cools your face on a summer evening began as motion over the water. The waves breathe, and the wind answers. Far out in the open ocean, storms begin like slow thoughts. A small disturbance, a shift in pressure. Over time, the sea feeds the air with energy, and the clouds grow dark with possibility. Yet even in their power, storms are part of the planet's rhythm, redistributing heat, watering parched lands, renewing balance. The same forces that can destroy also sustain. The same ocean that sends rain to flood the fields later draws it back into its calm. It is the world's way of exhaling. High above, the clouds travel as nomads, carrying pieces of the sea across the sky. They cast shadows on waves, paint sunsets in flame and rose, and break open to reveal blue again. The water that once touched coral reefs might fall on distant mountains, become snow, and melt centuries later into rivers that rejoin the ocean. Every drop of rain is a traveler, every gust of wind a thread in the ocean's vast dialogue with the air. Imagine standing by the shore during a gentle storm. The rain that falls onto your skin was once part of the very sea before you. The wind around you carries the scent of salt and distant journeys. In that moment you stand between two halves of the same body, sky and ocean, exchanging breath, weather, for all its drama, is simply the planet's reminder that balance is movement. The waves give rise to clouds. The clouds return as rain, and through that soft, endless conversation, the Earth keeps itself alive. From space, Earth looks like a dream seen through water, a glowing sphere of blue and white, drifting in black silence. Astronauts call it the Blue Marble, and when they speak of it, their voices always soften. The sight is humbling. Oceans swirling beneath thin ribbons of cloud, continents wrapped in mist, the whole planet shimmering with light reflected from the sea. It is easy to forget, from the ground, how fragile it all looks from above. More than 70% of Earth's surface is covered by water, yet it is the thinness of that layer that startles those who have seen it from orbit. A delicate film of ocean holds the climate steady, carries the breath of life, and reflects the sun's warmth back into space. From up there, boundaries disappear. No lines divide nations or hemispheres, only the seamless blending of blues and whites, currents and clouds. The ocean does not stop where land begins. It simply changes form, spreading its influence through air, river, and rain. For astronauts gazing down, the planet seems alive, not metaphorically, but literally, pulsing with movement. Clouds curl like fingerprints, storms twist into spirals, and great currents shimmer in slow rotation. It is the same pattern repeated in galaxies far away, the same geometry of motion found in shells, flowers, and tides. Everything circles, everything breathes. From this distance, the ocean and the sky are one continuous element, the planet's outer skin luminous and alive. This view has changed those who have witnessed it. Many astronauts describe the overview effect, the sudden realization that Earth is a single, interconnected system, delicate and whole. They speak of an overwhelming sense of unity, the awareness that the air we breathe and the water we drink belong to everyone, that all divisions are illusions sustained by distance. From orbit, you can see the thin haze of atmosphere, glowing faintly around the world, like a halo. That fragile shimmer is all that separates life from the cold of space, held together by the gravity of its own balance. Imagine floating there for a moment, watching sunlight spill across the Pacific. The vast blue glimmers beneath you like liquid glass, reflecting clouds that move as slowly as dreams. The curve of the horizon glows pale gold, and in that sweep of light and motion, you feel a strange calm. The world turns beneath you with steady grace, and you realize that everything, every current, every breeze, every breath, is connected in one vast, living circle. The blue marble is more than a photograph. It is a reminder. The same ocean that covers this world flows within us. In our blood, our breath, our cells. We are part of its pattern, carried by its rhythm. From space, from shore, from the quiet of your own thoughts, the message is the same. The world is one great body of water and light, turning in peace through the dark. And as long as the ocean shines, the planet will keep dreaming, calm, blue, and beautifully alive. Before maps, before compasses, before even language could describe it, humans stood at the edge of the sea and watched it move. The horizon stretched beyond sight, shimmering like a mirror to the sky. The waves rolled in, eternal and strange, whispering of distance. It must have felt both invitation and warning, beauty edged with fear. The ocean was the first mystery, and to face it was to face the unknown itself. The earliest sailors did not have charts to follow. They followed intuition, the flight of birds, the drift of clouds, the scent of salt carried on the wind. Their boats were small, carved from trees or lashed from reeds, their faith enormous. Each journey was a conversation between courage and the elements. Some must have felt that the sea was alive, a being with moods, capable of calm and fury, grace and indifference. They learned to read its language, the color of the water, the rhythm of waves, the silence before storms. Every ancient culture gave the sea a name and a soul. To the Greeks, it was Poseidon, the restless god with a trident of storms. To the Polynesians, it was a vast ancestral highway, a living space between islands that held both danger and direction. In the Norse sagas, the ocean was a serpent encircling the world, patient and eternal. These myths were not superstition, they were reverence translated into story, a way of saying that the ocean was too great to be understood by reason alone. Imagine one of those first voyages, a small canoe cutting through the dark water at dawn. The horizon glows faintly, and the wind smells of rain and promise. The paddles rise and fall, steady as breath. The sailors listen, not to words but to rhythm, the hush of water along the hull, the low hum of the current, the heartbeat of the sea beneath them. Every sound is a signal, every motion a guide. They are both guests and students in this boundless classroom. There must have been moments of fear, storms without warning, nights when the stars disappeared behind clouds, waves taller than homes. Yet the ocean rewarded bravery with knowledge. It taught navigation through the pattern of stars, direction through the tilt of waves, time through the dance of tides. Each successful journey was not a conquest but a communion. To survive was to listen well. The first sailors returned home changed. They had crossed into mystery and returned with its echoes. Stories of distant lands, new winds, new skies. They learned that fear, when met with respect, becomes wisdom. The ocean's lesson was clear even then. What we face with reverence will teach us. What we face with arrogance will humble us. The sea has been whispering this truth since the first canoe touched its surface, and it still whispers it now, to anyone willing to listen. Once fear gave way to fascination, the ocean transformed in the human imagination. No longer a boundary, it became a passage, a moving road leading outward to the unknown. Curiosity replaced caution, wonder overcame dread. Humanity's gaze, once fixed on the horizon with uncertainty, began to see it as invitation. The dream of discovery had begun. Across centuries, ships grew stronger, sails broader, courage deeper. People set out not only to survive the sea, but to learn its language, to trace its invisible routes. The Phoenicians mapped coastlines by starlight. Polynesian navigators read wave patterns to find islands hundreds of miles away, and Chinese mariners charted winds that carried them to distant continents. Each voyage added another line to the ocean's quiet map, drawn not in ink, but in memory and salt. The explorers of the Middle Ages and the Renaissance followed that same pulse of curiosity. Their ships creaked and groaned through storms and doldrums alike, chasing edges of the world that had no end. The ocean, patient and immense, taught them humility. It gave them new continents, new knowledge and new questions. For every land found, there was another horizon waiting. The farther they traveled, the more they realized the sea was not to be conquered, only respected. But discovery is not measured only in distance. It happens each time the human spirit meets wonder. When sailors looked up at unfamiliar constellations, they saw new maps written across the stars. When they watched bioluminescent waves glowing blue against the hull at night, they saw the sea's own constellations shining below. The ocean mirrored both the sky above and the imagination within. Imagine the moment an explorer first glimpsed land after weeks of open water, the faint line on the horizon becoming mountains, forests, and promise. The feeling must have been reverent, almost holy. Yet even as their ships dropped anchor, part of their hearts remained at sea. The ocean, once a challenge, had become companion, a restless friend that connected every shore it touched. With each discovery, the world grew smaller and larger at once. Maps expanded, but so did the realization that the Earth was one great, continuous ocean with islands of land scattered through it. The dream of discovery became a dream of connection, of trading stories, goods, and ideas carried by wind and current. The sea turned strangers into neighbors, continents into conversation. Even now, centuries later, that dream remains. Modern explorers no longer chase unknown continents, but they still listen to the sea's call, scientists studying its depths, astronauts peering down at its blue expanse from orbit. The tools have changed, but the longing has not. The ocean still invites, still rewards wonder with truth. Every voyage, whether across water or through imagination, begins with the same question, whispered by the waves. Spee what lies beyond. As centuries passed, and the world's coastlines were traced and named, curiosity turned inward, downward, beneath the surface that had carried ships for millennia. The age of discovery gave birth to a new question, quieter and more profound. Not Twiffy, where does the ocean lead? Fu, but what lives within it? Humanity, once content to sail upon the sea, began to look beneath it with patient eyes, seeking to understand the world that had shaped them from the beginning. The first oceanographers were part scientist, part poet, part explorer. In the 19th century, the expedition of the VNMS Challenger changed everything. For 4 years, her crew crossed the world's oceans, measuring depths, collecting samples, and discovering thousands of new species. They found life in places once thought impossible. Deep trenches, icy waters, and the blackness where light could not reach. Each discovery was a revelation, proof that the ocean was not emptiness, but abundance beyond imagination. From those journeys, modern marine science was born. As technology advanced, we built tools to extend our senses into the deep. The invention of the bathyscaphe, the submersible, and later, remotely operated vehicles allowed us to visit worlds hidden under miles of pressure. Cameras descended into trenches, lights revealed creatures that glowed like stars, and sonar painted landscapes as vast as continents. What once seemed unreachable became visible, and what was visible became humbling. Every new expedition reminded us that we still knew only a fraction of the ocean's story. The ocean's mysteries are not limited to biology. It shapes the air we breathe, the food we eat, the climate we depend on. Scientists study its currents to understand weather, its chemistry to track carbon, its depths to learn how Earth itself evolved. The sea is a living laboratory, a record of the planet's heartbeat. Each sample of water drawn from the deep tells a story about balance, about how heat, salt, and life interact in quiet cooperation. Yet for all the instruments and equations, the heart of ocean science remains wonder. Even the most seasoned researcher, peering through the viewport of a submersible, feels the same awe that the first sailors must have felt gazing at the horizon. The deeper we go, the more the ocean resists complete understanding. As if reminding us that mystery is part of its nature. Science can measure the sea, but it cannot exhaust it. Imagine floating in a research vessel at night, the deck lights dimmed, the water below alive with bioluminescent flickers. The scientists lean over the rail, not speaking, listening to the hush of waves against the hull. Their instruments are ready, but for a moment, silence is enough. The pursuit of knowledge has always begun there. In quiet awe, the ocean teaches, as it always has, not by answering, but by inviting us to keep asking, patiently, endlessly. Long before microscopes and submarines revealed its secrets, the ocean was already known to the imagination. Painters, poets, and musicians listened to its rhythm and found their own reflections there. To them, the sea was not a subject to be studied, but a feeling to be translated. Vastness made visible, depth turned into sound. It was both muse and mirror, endless as thought itself. In ancient myths, the ocean was creation's beginning. The Greeks believed life emerged from the waters of Oceanographic, the world river encircling everything. In Japanese legend, the sea god Regine kept pearls that controlled the tides. Polynesian stories tell of ancestors who carved islands from waves. These early artists of story were not describing geography. They were describing emotion, awe, reverence, belonging. The ocean was the first metaphor for infinity, and its language became the foundation of human art. When painters later turned their eyes toward the sea, they found both serenity and chaos. Turner captured storms that seemed to devour the world, his brushstrokes swirling like the wind itself. Claude Monet, standing by calm French shores, painted the sea as light, soft, shifting, alive. In each image there is movement, even in stillness. The water refuses to be captured, it must be felt. Each wave in paint or poetry is an echo of its rhythm, a reminder that art is an attempt to hold what cannot be held. Writers, too, have always heard the sea's voice. Hamazadi lines crash like surf against the walls of time. Belleville's sign Moby Dick turns the ocean into a vast mind, both holy and unknowable. The Virginia Woolf, gazing at waves through the window of her childhood home, heard them as the sound of consciousness itself, thought moving, ebbing, returning. The ocean has always been a metaphor for the inner life, calm one moment, tumultuous the next, always returning to balance. Music, perhaps more than any art, speaks the ocean's language most fluently. From the slow swell of a symphony to the whisper of a lullaby, composers imitate its pulse. Debussy's Sur la Mer turns the sea into sound, rippling, restless, and tender. Even the rhythm of the human heartbeat finds echo in the tide. Our earliest lullabies mimic the ocean's hush, as if we remember, in some ancient part of ourselves, that we were born from water. Art does not tame the ocean, it joins it. The painter's brush, the poet's pen, the musician's note, all move like waves, reaching outward, receding, returning. To create is to surrender to motion, to participate in the sea's rhythm of giving and receiving. The artist, like the tide, leaves something on the shore each time and takes something new in return. The ocean does not speak in sentences, but in sensations. Art is humanity learning that language, translating the sound of water into color, movement, and meaning. Every story, every painting, every song inspired by the sea is a reflection of its eternal truth, that beauty, like the tide, is never still, and that creation is simply the ocean dreaming through us. The ocean has given us everything: air to breathe, food to eat, beauty to inspire, stories to tell. For centuries it seemed infinite, its depths unfathomable, its resources endless. But now we know better. The ocean, like every living thing, can grow weary. It can heal, but only if we allow it to rest. To love the sea is to learn to protect it, to treat its quiet generosity not as guarantee, but as gift. For much of human history, the ocean was so vast that our actions seemed too small to matter. We built cities along its edges, filled ships with its harvests, and poured our waste into its currents, believing it would always carry everything away. But the sea remembers. Plastic drifts where plankton once floated, coral reefs, once gardens of color, fade to pale ghosts under warming waters. The balance that has held for millions of years now trembles, asking us for gentleness. And yet there is hope, a calm, steady hope rising like the tide. Scientists, artists, and communities around the world are listening to the sea's quiet plea. Fishermen are turning to sustainable methods that allow ecosystems to recover. Nations are creating marine sanctuaries, underwater parks, where life can grow freely again. Coral nurseries, delicate as dreams, are rebuilding reefs one branch at a time. Technology once used to exploit is now used to restore. Drones that track pollution, satellites that monitor temperature, divers planting new life with their own hands. The ocean teaches renewal, and we are beginning to learn. Protecting the blue is not only science, it is philosophy. It asks us to think like the sea, patient, connected, cyclical. Every action we take on land eventually finds its way back to the water. Rain carries what we spill. Rivers carry what we build. The waves carry what we forget. Caring for the ocean means caring for everything that touches it. The forests that anchor its winds, the mountains that feed its rivers, the skies that return its rain. It means remembering that Earth is not divided into parts, but woven into one. If you stand by the shore and watch the waves for long enough, you'll see what protection truly means. It is not about control. It is about balance. The sea does not need to be saved. It needs to be respected. Its healing begins when we choose to listen. When we understand that every gentle act, every mindful decision, every moment of gratitude is a tide of its own, rising quietly toward restoration. The ocean does not ask for perfection. It asks for care. Slow, consistent, patient, like its own rhythm. If we listen, if we act, if we remember that we are made of its salt and water, then the sea will forgive. It always has. Protecting the blue is simply learning to return its kindness. After all the journeys, the discoveries, the songs and the stories, the ocean leaves you not with answers, but with stillness. You begin to see that every wave, every current, every tide is also a mirror. To gaze into the sea is to see yourself, not in form, but in feeling. Its restlessness is your curiosity, its calm, your peace, its depth, your thought. The ocean is not something apart from you. It is the same element that moves in your breath, your blood, your dreams. For those who listen deeply, the sea teaches silence. It doesn't demand attention, it invites presence. You begin to notice how your heartbeat slows as you match its rhythm. how your thoughts stretch out like waves across the mind. The sound of the water is not simply heard, it is felt, a vibration that begins in the air and ends within the chest. The longer you listen, the more you realize that you are not standing beside the ocean, you are standing within it, part of its endless circulation. Each of us carries a reflection of the sea inside. The salt in our tears, the rhythm of our pulse, the ebb and flow of our emotions, all echo the same ancient pattern. We are walking tides, shaped by the same chemistry that fills the ocean's basins. To remember that is to feel both small and infinite at once. The boundaries between skin and water dissolve, the listener becomes the thing being listened to. Perhaps that is why the sea calms us. It recognizes us. It speaks the body's first language, the gentle pulse we heard before birth, the hush that surrounded us before we ever breathed air. To sit by the shore or to imagine yourself drifting in the deep is to return to that language. It reminds you that stillness is not the absence of motion, but the presence of harmony, a kind of moving peace. As twilight settles over the horizon, the sea mirrors the sky again, reflecting gold into violet, violet into blue. The surface smooths, the waves quiet themselves. In that stillness, the listener becomes reflection. You see not your face, but a presence, patient, connected, timeless. It is the same awareness that belongs to the ocean, to move without rush, to change without fear, to exist without end. You realize then that the ocean's greatest lesson has been waiting all along, that to understand the world you must first learn to listen, not with your ears but with your whole being. Listening is the purest form of reverence. The sea listens to the moon, to the wind, to itself, and in that endless listening it stays whole. You, too, can live that way. Let the waves within you quiet. Let your thoughts settle like sand after tide. The world will continue to breathe, and so will you, one listener among millions, resting gently in the ocean's reflection. There comes a point, even in the ocean's endless rhythm, when sound fades into something deeper than quiet, a stillness so complete it feels alive. This is the deepest silence, the kind that exists not from absence, but from fullness. Every vibration, every echo, every heartbeat of the sea has folded into it. Nothing has stopped. Everything has simply come to rest. Imagine yourself sinking once more, leaving behind the shimmer of the surface and the hum of distant waves. Down here, the light softens to blue, then to silver, then to a darkness so gentle it feels like sleep itself. You no longer fall. You drift, suspended in calm. The pressure of the water wraps around you like a blanket, steady and secure. It holds you, not to restrain but to reassure. The world narrows to the rhythm of your breath and the faint pulse of your heart. The sea, too, breathes slow, deep, eternal. In this silence, time begins to stretch. Seconds blur into minutes, minutes into something wider and more fluid. Your body forgets its weight. Your thoughts lose their edges. What remains is awareness, soft and spacious. The deep no longer feels like distance, but like home. You understand, perhaps for the first time, that silence is not the absence of life. It is the sound of everything living in harmony. Creatures move here, unseen but close. Jellyfish pulsing, like slow lanterns. Fish drifting in schools that glow and fade like distant constellations. Their motion is soundless, yet each movement adds to the quiet music of existence. The ocean does not need noise to speak. It communicates through rhythm, through breath, through stillness. Even your heartbeat seems to match it now. Steady, patient, unhurried. Somewhere above, the waves continue their eternal conversation with the moon. It is the pause between tides, the breath held before dream. In this moment, you feel completely safe, carried, protected, understood. The ocean's silence is not empty. It is full of care. It asks nothing of you except to rest. If you listen closely, you might sense a subtle vibration, not sound, but presence. It hums beneath perception, a reminder that you are part of this vastness, woven into the same rhythm as the sea. You do not need to move or think or reach. You are already where you need to be. The deepest silence is not about closing your eyes. It is about opening them inward. It is where the ocean's endless voice becomes your own breath, where awareness fades into comfort, and where comfort becomes peace. Let it hold you. Let the stillness rise like tide around your thoughts. The sea has carried you far, and now it carries you home, into quiet, into the deepest silence. Beneath the stillness of the surface, the mind moves like the sea, slow, unseen, continuous. Thoughts drift like currents, weaving in gentle spirals through layers of memory and feeling. You don't need to control them. They know where to go. Just as the ocean finds its path around mountains and through trenches, your awareness finds its way through the depths of rest. Everything inside you begins to move at the same calm pace, measured, fluid, inevitable. Imagine your consciousness as a vast, moonlit ocean. Waves of thought rise softly, peak, and dissolve without a trace. Beneath them, long tides of memory flow, unhurried, rhythmic. These are the fine currents beneath consciousness, side, carrying fragments of dream and reflection through the mind's dark waters. They move too slowly to be noticed, yet they hold everything that makes you feel. You. This is the quiet machinery of rest. Unseen, constant, healing. You float above it all, weightless, watching the currents swirl below like ribbons of shadow and light. One carries the faint glimmer of a childhood memory, the sound of rain against a window, the comfort of warmth after cold. Another holds a forgotten face, smiling gently as it drifts past. They do not ask to be followed or understood. They simply pass, like clouds across a night sky, each one part of the ocean's slow, eternal dream. The boundary between waking and sleeping begins to blur. Thoughts lose their edges, blending with imagination. You can no longer tell where one ends and the other begins. And it doesn't matter. You are moving deeper, following a rhythm older than memory. The mind has stopped trying to think. It has begun to drift. This is not forgetting. It is release. The sea knows how to let go of its waves, and now so do you. If you could see your mind from afar, it might look like the ocean at dawn. Dark stillness beneath, pale ripples above. Each current within you flows toward balance, redistributing tension into calm. Breathing, heartbeat, thought, all become one rhythm, slow and steady. The world narrows to softness, to warmth, to quiet motion. There is nothing to do here but float. These are the waters beneath awareness. The gentle systems that heal without instruction. The quiet intelligence that guides you toward rest. You do not have to manage them. You only have to trust them, as the ocean trusts gravity, as the tide trusts the moon. Everything within you is already finding its way home. You are drifting now deeper still into the currents beneath consciousness, where thought becomes silence and silence becomes peace. The ocean carries you easily, its movement your own. Let the last remnants of wakefulness dissolve like foam. You are safe. You are still. You are floating through the quiet rhythm that lies beneath all things, the sea, the breath, the mind, moving together, endlessly, in calm. There is a point on every journey where knowledge ends, where maps fade and certainty softens into wonder. In the ocean, this place is not marked by depth or distance, but by quiet. It is the region where the mind no longer tries to measure or name, where questions melt into feeling. You have reached that place now. Here there is no need to understand. Here it is enough simply to sigh by. The unknown has always carried two faces, fear and beauty. To stand at the edge of it is to feel both. But as you drift deeper, fear dissolves. The unknown is not empty. It is vast, warm, and safe. A presence so completed leaves no room for worry. The ocean does not question itself. It simply moves, obeying its nature. In the same way, you can let go of the need to control what comes next. Rest begins when curiosity becomes trust. Around you, the darkness has texture, soft and infinite, like velvet stretched across the world. It hums faintly with the vibration of unseen life, a reminder that the universe, too, is awake within its stillness. You float in that awareness, surrounded by space, but never alone. The boundaries between you and everything else blur, then fade. The sea is not beneath you anymore. It is within you, and you within it. One continuous motion of calm. The comfort of the unknown is its honesty. It asks nothing, promises nothing, but gives everything. Peace, space, and permission to rest. You no longer need to name what you feel or where you are going. You are carried, effortlessly, by the same forces that move the tides and stars. Each breath rises and falls like a gentle wave. Each heartbeat is a distant drum echoing through water. You are part of the rhythm, no longer separate from it. In the unknown, there is no failure, no expectation, no time. Everything is allowed to unfold exactly as it must. The ocean does not resist the dark, it becomes luminous within it. The same is true for you. The deeper you drift, the softer your thoughts become, until even thinking feels like light dissolving into water. All that remains is feeling, not emotion, but presence. Stillness itself becomes a companion. If you could give this feeling a color, it would be something between blue and silver, the hue of calm before sleep. The edges of awareness grow dim, but there is no hurry to leave them. You are resting, not escaping. You are safe, not lost. The unknown holds you gently like a promise kept by the universe since the beginning of time. Let go of knowing, let go of doing, let go of everything except the steady rhythm of your breath. The sea has carried you through sound, through movement, through memory. Now it carries you into peace. You do not need to find the shore. The ocean will hold you until morning. The sea begins to lift you slowly, tenderly. There is no urgency in the motion, no disruption to the peace that surrounds you. Only a gradual lightening, as if the ocean itself has decided to breathe you upward. The pressure softens. The water grows warmer. You rise without effort, carried by the same invisible currents that brought you here. The deeper silence remains within you, steady and complete, even as light begins to return. Around you, faint glimmers bloom like dawn. At first, they are only hints, threads of silver through shadow. Then they gather into shapes, into color. It is not brightness that meets you, but softness. The world brightens the way a dream clarifies just before it fades. Fish drift past like passing thoughts. Bubbles rise like new beginnings. You are ascending through a slow sunrise made of water. There is peace in this upward motion. The ocean is releasing you gently, returning you to air the way it releases its tides to the moon. It keeps nothing, not even what it loves most. In that generosity, you feel your own breath deepen. Inhale, light. Exhale, calm. Each breath brings you closer to the surface, yet you never leave the stillness behind. It moves with you, like a tide that continues within. You remember now how it felt to first enter the sea, that moment of letting go, of surrendering to its weight and wonder. The return feels the same, only softer. You are no longer exploring or searching. You are simply rising. The deep has given you its lesson. That rest is not escape, but restoration. The quiet has taught you how to carry peace upward into waking life. As you drift toward the surface, the sound of waves begins to hum through the water, distant at first, then nearer, a rhythm both ancient and familiar. It is the ocean's heartbeat, steady and eternal. It reminds you that everything moves in cycles: descent, stillness, return. Even sleep is just another tide, the mind ebbing and flowing, carrying you between worlds. You reach the brighter layers now, where the water ripples with reflected sky. The colors change from deep indigo to pale turquoise, from night to morning. You can see the shimmer of air above, that delicate line where two worlds meet. You rise through it like a breath exhaled by the earth itself. The surface folds around you, warm and welcoming. You are home. Floating there, you realize that nothing has truly changed. The same peace that lived in the deep still moves within you. The stillness you found below is not left behind. It is carried upward, a quiet strength beneath the skin. You are both sea and sky now, depth and light in equal measure. The ocean has taught you its final truth, that every return is a beginning, and every beginning begins in calm. The ocean breathes, and so do you. Every wave that rises is an inhale, every wave that falls an exhale. Even now, floating at the surface, you can feel that rhythm surrounding you, steady, soothing, endless. The same pulse that moves water across continents moves quietly within your chest. You are part of the planet's breathing. Inhale, feel the air fill you slowly, cool and calm. Exhale, release it just as gently. The ocean mirrors your motion, drawing you into its rhythm. There is no separation anymore, only flow. You inhale light from the sky, exhale stillness from the deep. The sea and your body share the same cycle, each breath a tide returning to shore. Around you, the water glimmers softly, stirred by the faintest breeze. You can hear it, a hush, a whisper, the sound of a heartbeat stretched across the horizon. The surface moves with you. As your chest rises, the sea lifts. As you exhale, the water settles. Together, you make one movement, one sound, the gentle language of life continuing without hurry. There is no need to count, no need to think. Your body already remembers what to do. Breathing is the simplest act, yet the most sacred. Every inhale is a gift, every exhale a release. The ocean has always known this. It breathes through its tides, through the rise and fall of waves, through the migration of winds and clouds. Even the smallest tide pool echoes this rhythm. Every living thing on earth is tuned to it. Every leaf, every creature, every heartbeat. You are listening to the same rhythm that has existed since the first breath of the world. Inhale, feel the air move easily through you. It carries salt, warmth, memory. It reminds you of morning light over calm water, of quiet evenings watching the horizon fade. Exhale, feel everything heavy drift away, like silt settling to the bottom. The air leaves your body and peace enters its place. In this rhythm, there is healing. In this breath, there is belonging. For a moment, imagine the entire ocean breathing with you, its tides rising with your inhale, its currents flowing outward with your exhale. The connection is real. It always has been. You are made of the same salt, the same water, the same quiet intention to move, to rest, to exist. Breathing becomes a conversation, not between you and the sea, but between all things that live. Now, as your breathing slows, you begin to feel lighter, as if the air itself were carrying you. Thoughts drift farther apart, each one softer than the last. The water cradles you like a slow lullaby. There is nothing to change, nothing to reach for. Just this, one breath, one tide, one moment of calm. The ocean breathes, and so do you perfectly, quietly, eternally. The waves have grown quiet now. The horizon has softened into darkness, and the air rests heavy with salt and peace. The ocean lies before you like a great, breathing dream, endless, patient, alive. You have wandered through its depths, listened to its silence, learned its rhythm, and now it rocks you toward rest. This is not the end of the journey, but the moment when movement becomes stillness, when waking turns to sleep. Above you, the first stars appear, their light trembling gently across the surface. Each reflection ripples once, then fades as if bowing goodnight. The moon, steady and silver, hangs low, the same quiet guardian that guided your descent and return. You can feel its pull still, a tender thread connecting you to the sea's slow heartbeat. Even in sleep, the tide will keep its rhythm, carrying your dreams the way it carries shells and foam, softly, without effort. The water holds your weight easily, every muscle unwinds, every breath arrives without asking. The sea seems to hum beneath you, a low, wordless song made of distance and memory. Its melody says only this: you are safe. You are home. The ocean asks nothing more than for you to rest, to trust its patience, to let go of the edges of the day. Whatever remains unfinished will wait for morning. The sea keeps time for you. Inhale the scent of salt and wind. Exhale the hush of the waves. The boundaries between air and water blur, between you and the world dissolve. It no longer matters where the sea ends or you begin. You are both made of the same blue and light. You drift on the ocean's surface like a thought at peace, buoyed by something greater than gravity, the quiet assurance that life continues, calmly, endlessly. Somewhere far below, creatures move in silence, their glowing bodies painting soft constellations in the dark. They rise and fall with the same rhythm as your breath. Above, clouds drift slowly, reflecting the faint shimmer of moonlight. The world feels suspended, unbroken, whole. This is the ocean's gift, the reminder that everything, sky, sea, life, and dream, belongs to the same infinite calm. Let that calm move through you now. Let it settle behind your eyes, along your heartbeat, into your breathing. Thoughts fade like footprints on sand, washed gently away by the tide. You are floating in the moment before dawn, where even the stars seem to rest. The sea murmurs one last time, its words ancient and tender: "Sleep well, wanderer." You are home in the water. You are home in yourself. And as the waves rise and fall, so does your breath. The ocean will keep its watch through the night, holding you in its quiet embrace. Nothing more is needed. Only stillness, only peace. The sea whispers softly through the dark, thin goodnight. Die good night, ocean.